After my mother passed away, my father brought Grandma to live with us. Grandma insisted on cooking with moldy loofahs and decade-old frozen meat from the fridge. To survive, I threw all the food away and patiently explained food safety to Grandma, yet my father and brother accused me of being an unfilial child. Later, Grandma deliberately got back at me by switching my medication after I died. My father told the police that Grandma didn't mean any harm. What ill intentions could an old lady possibly have? Given a second chance at life, I've learned to be filial towards Grandma. Loofah soup is great, so of course it should be reserved for the men in the family, just as Grandma insists. Later, Grandma bought Dad a 50 yuan suit, which ended up with him having to give a presentation while wearing pants with a split crotch. Dad was furious, but I said, "What's the big deal? Grandma was just being frugal." Grandma took my brother's nude photos to his tutoring class and started showing them around to set him up on blind dates. My brother was mortified, but I told him he was being ungrateful and that it was just Grandma's way of showing she cared. Eventually they broke down and decided to send Grandma back. Upon learning this, Grandma brought home a woman she found by the roadside. She then forced both the father and younger brother to drink a bucket of aphrodisiac. After all, she had to ensure the family lineage would continue before her departure. As I looked at the familiar scene before me, the suffocating feeling gradually faded away. In a daze, I took out my phone and was shocked to see the date. I had been reborn. Before I could even process it, my grandmother's shouts came from the kitchen. "You silly girl, always wasting things. This melon is still perfectly good to eat." Hearing Grandma's voice, I instinctively turned toward the kitchen. In the kitchen, Grandma was fiddling with the fuzzy loofah she'd picked up downstairs. Next to it sat the decade-old cured meat she'd brought from her hometown, which had been sitting in the fridge for 10 years. A foul odor began to permeate the room. My father and younger brother glanced at me, as if waiting for me to stop Grandma. Seeing that I hadn't moved for a while and Grandma was about to put the moldy loofah into the pan, my father spoke up first. "Aren't you a medical student? You should know whether that moldy loofah is safe to eat or not. Grandma's getting on in years, even if she doesn't understand. Shouldn't you know better?" My heart clenched at those words. In my past life, after Mother passed away, Father used Grandma's loneliness in the countryside as an excuse to bring her home, claiming it was his filial duty, but he'd forgotten Mother had her reasons for keeping Grandma away. 1. My grandmother is not only superstitious and old-fashioned, but also stubborn and holds grudges. She believes that because I'm a girl, I should always give in to my younger brother, and insists I must learn the 3 obediences and 4 virtues, taking the initiative to do household chores. When she saw I was ignoring her, she deliberately caused a scene at my part-time job, which got me fired. I confronted her about it, but my father actually told me to be more understanding of Grandma. What's the point of nitpicking? After all, she is my elder. I held my tongue and followed my father's advice, treating her as family, but then she actually tried to marry me off for a dowry. I was on the verge of a breakdown and argued with Grandma, but my brother and father urged me to be considerate of her old age and not upset her. They told me to just put up with it. It's just marriage. What difference does it make who it's with? This time, too, I kindly reminded her that moldy food isn't safe to eat, but she insisted. "I've already cut off the moldy, rotten parts. Why can't I eat the rest?" "You don't know the hardship of earning money because you don't have to. This is called being frugal. This is a virtue passed down by the older generation." With no other choice, I had to throw away the food my grandmother made just to stay alive. I seriously explained health knowledge to her. To my dismay, not only did my brother and father refuse to help, but they also accused me of being an ungrateful child. "Grandma went through all the trouble to make this. If you won't eat it, that's one thing, but how could you just throw it away? My sister is so disrespectful. If it were me, I'd eat whatever Grandma made, even if it killed me." Left with no other choice, I ended up disposing of all the moldy fruits, rotten vegetables, and freezer-burnt meat she had brought home, all by myself, then replaced it with the newly purchased healthy food. She held a grudge against me because of that. She thought I was deliberately giving her a hard time, and that I looked down on her just like my mother did. She intentionally swapped out the medication I needed, hoping I'd die out there. After my death, my father went to the police to defend my grandmother. He insisted she didn't mean any harm. What ill intentions could an elderly woman possibly have? He argued that her memory was just failing with age, asking how she could ever harm her own granddaughter. Eventually, my grandmother was acquitted and released. My brother even made a special trip to my grave to tell me I got what I deserved. Serves me right for mistreating Grandma and being so unfilial. At that thought, I looked up and saw the expectant faces of my brother and father. I smiled and rose to my feet. "Dad, Grandma has lived a long life. She definitely knows better than I do. If she says it's edible, then it's edible. Just wait. I'm going to help Grandma with the cooking right now." When I entered the kitchen, Grandma looked at me warily. "I'm just afraid I might lose her precious old meat." I smiled at her and said sincerely, "Grandma, I think you're absolutely right. I'll definitely follow your example from now on. Where you say east, I won't go west." Grandma eyed me with suspicion, but seeing my earnest expression, she broke into a smug smile. "Now that's more like it. You were so set on listening to your mother before. Would I, your own grandmother, ever steer you wrong?" I nodded and, under Grandma's direction, started adding ingredients to the soup: a few shriveled scallion leaves, a bit of aged salted fish that's seen better days, some overcooked winter melons swimming in broth, and a splash of soy sauce. Older than I am, after a flurry of activity between Grandma and me, I set the 3 dishes in a soup before my younger brother and father, then I ladled a bowl of soup for each of them. Father and younger brother stared at the murky green soup with uneasy expressions. They looked at me, hoping I would say something to stop Grandma. After all, he didn't want to eat it or defy Grandma directly, so he wanted me to speak up. I had been the one reasoning with Grandma all along, but now I just stood there, motionless, staring at the two of them with a puzzled look. "Dad, little brother, why aren't you eating?" This is Grandma's heartfelt gesture. "How could you not eat it?" Hearing this, Grandma looked at them affectionately and said, "It's all right, go ahead and eat. There's more in the pot, eat up. There's plenty more where that came from. I brought all the good stuff from home this time." Grandma shot me a glance and added, "It's all because Ivy was being difficult before. Every time I made something, she'd toss it. It's rare to see her change her ways today. She finally knows how to be filial and even gave me a hand." My younger brother looked at our beaming grandmother and handed me the bowl. "Sis, you have the first bite." I waved my hands hurriedly. "Oh, I couldn't possibly. I'm just a girl, but you boys are the pillars of this family, the hope for the future, Grandma's pride and joy." "Right, Grandma." I stood beside my father, holding chopsticks, and picked up a bite of food to bring to his mouth. "Here, Father, let me serve you your meal." Grandma said women aren't allowed at the table, the men have to eat first. Grandma looked at me with great satisfaction. Ivy has really grown into such a sensible child. Father's face scrunched up like a bitter melon, as if something were stuck in his throat. He looked at the table full of dishes, then turned to gaze at me expectantly. "Ivy, our family isn't that superstitious. How about you?" I cut my father off before he could finish speaking. When Grandma called me a worthless burden and only bought gifts for my brother, he turned a blind eye to it all. When I was a child, my grandmother wanted to give me acupuncture, so my mother refused to let her visit, fearing she might mistreat me, yet he said that's just how Grandma is, and there's no point making a fuss about it. Now, to avoid conflict, my father has started challenging Grandma's preference for sons over daughters, but starting to correct it now. It's really too late. I looked at the fear in my father's eyes and said with a smile, "It's okay, Dad, even if we're not superstitious, the elders should still eat first. Here, Dad, have some more. Grandma put a lot of effort into making this. Aren't you the most filial son?" My father gritted his teeth, closed his eyes and opened his mouth, and I seized the chance to stuff the food in. His face instantly turned pale, and it took him a great effort to finally swallow it. I ate it. "Okay," he looked at me pleadingly, as if he had just survived a disaster. Seeing this, I immediately picked up another piece of meat and placed it in my father's bowl. "Dad, here, have some meat." With no other choice, my father tremblingly picked up the meat and ate it. Watching his trembling body, I found it somewhat amusing. Seemed like the meat packed quite a punch. My brother was doing his best to stay out of the spotlight. Of course I wasn't about to let him off the hook. I turned to him and nudged his bowl closer. "Hey, try some of this soup. Grandma mentioned you've been pulling all-nighter studying lately. You need to build up your strength." My brother's hand trembled as he held his chopsticks, his eyes darting between Grandma and me with a pleading look. "Sis, I ate too much this morning. I'm really not hungry right now." Before I could say anything, Grandma cut in. "You'll eat even if you're not hungry. You're at that age where you're still growing. Eating well is important for your development. If you don't eat now, what will you do when you get hungry this afternoon?" I nodded in agreement, saying, "Exactly, little brother. See how well Grandma takes care of you, too. You're not going to turn down such a kind gesture, are you?" My brother still didn't move. "Grandma, I'm really not hungry." Seeing that he wouldn't eat, I pretended to be hurt. "Darling, you're not rejecting your grandmother, are you? These dishes might be humble, but they're made with all my love. How can you be so disrespectful? Is this how your father raised you?" Grandma's face fell at my words. "Tristan, after all the love I've given you, you won't even eat this for me." I kept stirring the pot. "Dad, why aren't you eating either? Don't tell me you're all turning up your noses at Grandma's cooking." Upon hearing this, Father immediately shook his head. He dreaded nothing more than being called an unfilial son. Grandma refused to believe it and began pouring out her grievances. My son, how could you treat me this way? When you were little, I changed your diapers and raised you through thick and thin. I'd get up before dawn just to take care of you, and now you have the nerve to look down on me." As she spoke, Grandma kept a close watch on Father's expression. Seeing that Father still refused to eat, she wiped away her tears, slapped her thigh, and wailed, "I'm just old and useless now. I cook for my son and grandson, but neither of them wants to eat a bite." Father looked at Grandma, then at the dishes on the table, and finally forced out the words, "Who said I dislike it? Tristan, you should eat too." My younger brother looked up, staring at Father in surprise. "But Dad, this dish," Father cut him off. "What's wrong with it? It's perfectly fine. Eat, you will eat it." With that, he picked up a slimy piece of winter melon and shoved it into his mouth with his eyes closed. The winter melon must have been stirred too long. It was practically oozing juice the moment I cut it open. As soon as Dad took a bite, his face scrunched up in disgust. "Take your time, Dad." I handed him a glass of water at just the right moment. Grandma said there's plenty more where that came from. Seeing that their father had eaten, the younger brother reluctantly picked up the spoon, scooped some soup, and tremblingly brought it to his mouth. As soon as he swallowed it, he jerked his head away, wanting to spit the soup out, but I quickly held his chin. "Swallow it, little brother, what a waste to spit it out." Grandma spent half a day squatting in the market just to gather these vegetables. My brother's eyes welled up, a mix of hurt and anger, as he pushed my hand away. "That's easy for you to say. Why don't you try it yourself?" I shook my head. "I don't deserve it. Grandma made this for you." He shot me a glare, probably worried about upsetting Grandma, and reluctantly took another big gulp. Grandmother nodded with satisfaction as she watched her son and grandson comply with her wishes. "That's more like it. We never had such luxuries back in my day. Meat was a rare treat reserved for special occasions. I brought the meat your uncle gifted us because I care about you." Father and younger brother exchanged a glance, their eyes filled with utter despair. After all, it's been 10 years since second uncle passed away. Father couldn't take it anymore and suddenly stood up. Before Grandma could react, he grabbed the plates from the table, stormed into the kitchen, and dumped them all into the trash with a loud clatter. My younger brother snapped out of it too, instantly grabbing the 2 remaining dishes on the table. Under Grandma's stunned gaze, they dumped those 2 plates of food into the trash as well. They caught a whiff of the foul stench coming from the kitchen. Turning around, they didn't spare what was in the pot either, dumping it all out. Grandma froze for a couple of seconds, then suddenly let out a shriek and rushed over, staring at the trash can with a pained expression. "You, all of you, I went through so much trouble to salvage these vegetables, and you just threw them out. There's so much here, it would have lasted me at least 3 days." Father's tone was filled with resignation. "Mom, this food has gone bad. It could make someone seriously sick. How could it be deadly? I ate it just fine, but you guys get sick from it. Seriously." Grandma sat on the ground, slapping her thighs and crying. "Back when I was starving, I even had to gnaw on tree bark. You all really have it easy these days. My meat, my vegetables, all gone." I stood nearby, helping Grandma up, and said, "Dad, little brother, how could you do this?" My father turned and glared at me. "Shut your mouth. That dish is definitely inedible." I can't just shut up. I walked over to the trash can and pointed at the food inside. "Last time I threw away half of Grandma's moldy cucumber. You said I was being disrespectful and broke the old woman's heart. Even my brother scolded me for being wasteful. But now you're saying it's spoiled and inedible." My father and brother flushed with embarrassment, wanting to argue back but rendered speechless by my words. Those were the exact same words he had shouted at me last time, right to my face. Grandma cried even harder, pointing at my father and scolding. "Listen to her, even your own daughter has more sense than you do." Father was left speechless, his face turning ashen with frustration, left with no choice. He resigned himself to educating Grandma, just as I had in my past life. Grandma kept shaking her head, insisting she was too old to understand. After talking until he was hoarse with no success, Father finally turned to me and said, "Ivy, why don't you explain it to Grandma?" I shook my head. "I don't get it. Grandma taught me the 3 obediences and 4 virtues. Whatever you and Grandma say, I'll do." Father was absolutely furious. Just as he was about to speak, a sudden cramp shot through his stomach. He doubled over, clutching his belly, his face beaded with cold sweat. His father no longer had the energy to argue with Grandma and shuffled painfully toward the bathroom. To his surprise, his younger brother was already inside. The father clung to the door, watching it about to give way, and cried out in despair, "Hurry up and come out. I can't hold on much longer." A weak voice came from inside the bathroom. It was the younger brother. "I can't get up either. It's like a running stream back here, coming in waves." The father clutched his stomach, his face pale, so desperate he was kicking the door. "Get out, I'm about to shit my pants, stop kicking, I want to too, but I can't get up." The younger brother was groaning inside, completely oblivious to his father outside the door. Seeing the bathroom was out of order, father struggled to make his way outside, but after just a couple of steps, right at the doorway, yellow liquid started streaming down his pants. He felt a sudden, forceful surge from behind. The pain was so intense he couldn't stand, and he collapsed onto the floor. I just found it ridiculous. I walked past the living room, glanced at my father having explosive diarrhea by the bathroom door, and leisurely pulled up my phone to record. Grandma poked her head out, frowned, and muttered, "What's the big deal? You're screaming like a stuck pig. Back in my day, I ate wild vegetables and had diarrhea for 3 days straight. I survived just fine. You're just being dramatic." Hearing this, my father's temper flared up, but he was in too much pain to yell. He could only glare at her while gasping for breath. "Mom, just drop it already. Haven't you seen we all got diarrhea?" Grandma stiffened her neck and retorted, "That's because you all have weak stomachs. How dare you blame my cooking for this?" Just as they were speaking, the bathroom door swung open. His younger brother stumbled out, gripping the doorframe for support. His face was deathly pale, and his legs were so weak he nearly collapsed. The moment he shuffled aside, their father barged past him frantically, squeezing into the bathroom. Almost immediately, the sound of the toilet flushing was accompanied by their father's muffled cries of pain. His brother glanced at the mess by the doorway, frowned, and began inching his way along the wall toward the living room. I sidestepped out of the way. My younger brother lay limply on the couch, before father even finished speaking. My brother broke out in a cold sweat again. He trembled his way to the bathroom door. "Dad, come quick, I'm not feeling well again." A moment later, my younger brother pointed at me. "Sis, call an ambulance." "No." His voice trembling, my brother said, "I need to go to the hospital." My father hunched over, clutching his stomach, writhing in too much pain to speak. I tilted my head at their suffering, putting on an innocent expression. Then I should go ask Grandma first, whatever Grandma says." "I'll do." My brother stared at me in disbelief, his trembling hand still supporting our father. "Don't go." I ignored him and turned to call Grandma out. Grandma took in the scene between the two of them. She immediately dismissed the idea of going to the hospital, insisting she had a solution for such a minor ailment. As she said this, she pulled a bottle of medicine from her luggage and muttered, "Hospitals are just scams. Who knows how much money they'd squeeze out of you for a visit? Western medicine is all a scam. To truly heal, you need to rely on the wisdom passed down by our ancestors." My younger brother was so frantic that tears welled up in his eyes. Struggling to back away, I smiled and pulled them both onto the couch, then said to my slightly upset grandmother, "Grandma, I believe you. You're never wrong. With how devoted my brother and father are, they'd be even more willing to support you than I am." Granny was delighted by my praise and happily walked over to show them the medicine in her hand. "This medicinal wine is truly remarkable. I'd never use this on an ordinary day. Would I ever do anything to harm you?" With no other choice, the younger brother and their father reluctantly agreed to their grandmother's suggestion. Though still somewhat skeptical, the grandmother nodded, and without even pouring it out, she directly tipped the bottle to their mouths, forcing the yellow liquid down both the brother and father's throats. My younger brother and father drank Grandma's medicinal liquor. They not only had diarrhea but also started vomiting. Since Grandma favored my younger brother the most, she gave my father just a sip and poured the rest down my brother's throat. In no time, the little brother slid off the couch, crashed heavily onto the floor, curled up into a ball, convulsed, and passed out. Father was scared out of his wits, scrambling frantically to rush over and hold his son. Tristan, Ivy, call an ambulance." Grandma panicked too and said plaintively, "That's impossible. I made this medicinal liquor with ginseng, and it's been steeping for over 40 years. There's no way it could cause any harm." But seeing my younger brother starting to foam at the mouth, Grandma panicked. She was genuinely afraid it might be fatal and frantically started directing me. Call, hurry up and call for help." I took out my phone and dialed 120. At the hospital, the doctors rushed my father and brother into the emergency room. Fortunately, both of them were successfully resuscitated, but given how much they'd been through, they had to spend the next few days lying in bed with 4 drips. The doctor sighed heavily while reviewing the medical chart during rounds. "Acute gastroenteritis with food poisoning. You must strictly avoid irritants, only bland liquids for now. Absolutely no greasy, raw, cold, or leftover foods." Grandma pursed her lips disapprovingly and muttered under her breath as soon as the doctor left, "What a load of medical nonsense. A man is what he eats, and without meat, where would the strength come from?" I didn't respond. Just watched as she got ready to go home and make trotter soup for her father. I immediately pulled out 200 yuan from my bag. 3. Grandma, I've got your back. In my past life, my grandmother was just like this. I told her I was allergic to peaches, but she insisted I was faking it. Even when I was hospitalized due to the allergy, she still stuck to her opinion. But in that past life, my grandmother never came to check on me when I was in the hospital. Now I look at my father and younger brother lying weak in their hospital beds. I couldn't help but laugh. After all, they were Grandma's absolute favorites. Sure enough, for the next 3 days, Grandma insisted on defying the doctor's orders. The doctor said no greasy food, so she made meat broth instead. She even specifically picked pork belly to make braised pork for my brother, sneaking bites into his mouth when the nurses weren't looking. Father turned pale with fright. Mom, the doctor said we shouldn't eat this. Grandma glared and forcefully shoved a piece of fatty meat into my brother's mouth. What do you know? This is the good stuff. My brother felt so nauseous from eating that his stomach, which had just started to feel a bit better, began to ache again. Clutching his stomach, he pleaded, Grandma, please, I really can't eat anymore. Tristan is such a good boy. Just one more bite. Grandma switched to a coaxing tone, holding the chopsticks up to his mouth. I made this especially for you. I sat in the corner of the hospital room peeling an apple. I didn't stop Grandma's actions either. After all, I wanted to show filial piety. It wasn't until my brother was rushed to the emergency room again that Grandma finally settled down a bit. I very reluctantly swapped the chicken soup for millet porridge on the day of discharge. Both my father and younger brother had lost a significant amount of weight and would instinctively frown at the sight of greasy food. The first thing they did after returning home was to throw out all the things Grandma had hoarded. Grandma was so frantic she was hopping mad. Each got a slap. Father and younger brother covered their faces, unable to fight back. They had no choice but to endure Grandma's scolding. After much pleading from father and younger brother, Grandma finally gave up on the idea of scavenging for ingredients to cook. Father is about to get a promotion. The office director hinted privately that as long as the live speech goes smoothly, the deputy manager position is as good as his. After rummaging through the entire house, my father finally decided to just buy a new suit. Overhearing this, Grandma immediately thumped her chest and declared, I'll pick one out for you. My father tried to refuse, but Grandma cut him off with a stern question. Don't you trust me? Didn't I buy all your previous clothes for you? But Mom, this is really important to me. I'm not joking. Grandma wouldn't accept it and retorted angrily, so what? What's the difference? I'm your mother, and you have to listen to me. In the end, my father agreed. It was just a suit, after all, and he was a devoted son. The next day, I watched as my grandmother headed to a stall at the local market. Thanks to her haggling, she managed to snag a set for just $50. Father frowned at the suit Grandma had bought. Mom, where on earth did you get this? None of your business. Grandma shoved the suit into his arms. There's no way I'd pick something flawed. How come you're happy to wear what your wife buys you, but you're always skeptical about the things I get you? Father was left speechless and could only hang the suit in the closet, planning to secretly change into the one he'd bought earlier on the day of his presentation. But when the day of the presentation arrived, Father found the closet empty and rushed to find Grandma. Mom, where are my clothes? I stepped out of the bathroom at just the right moment, holding my father's clothes, and walked over to them. Grandma, I've washed all of Dad's clothes, not a single piece missing. Father's face went pale as he stared at the dripping wet old suit. Ivy, why did you wash all of these? I put on an innocent act and said, Grandma told me to. Grandma says girls should do more housework at home. You have to learn how to do laundry and cook, or no one will want to marry you in the future. Grandma nodded approvingly. Ivy, I did a good job raising you, didn't I? Seeing the displeased look on her father's face, she patted him on the back. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. The new one I bought for you hasn't been washed. I'm coming to watch your speech today. You have to wear the clothes I bought for you. Father wanted to refuse, but seeing Grandma's face, he finally resigned himself and put it on. Being the dutiful child that I am, of course I had to accompany Grandma to watch Father's speech. Father took a deep breath, walked onto the stage clutching his speech notes, his back ramrod straight, but the cheap suit had no structure to it, and the fabric felt utterly lacking in quality. Even though Father was being very careful, his suit was still all wrinkled. Compared to everyone else's suits, it was like night and day. For the worst part was when Father went on stage to give thanks and bent over. The sound of his pants tearing was painfully obvious in the quiet hall. Every eye in the room was involuntarily drawn to the tear in my father's trousers. A long rip had split open the seat of his suit pants, revealing a pair of faded gray underwear beneath. The audience fell into a dead silence at first, then erupted into thunderous laughter. Some whipped out their phones to take pictures, others stifled giggles behind their hands, while the department manager's face turned as dark as a storm cloud. Father froze on stage, clutching his speech notes with a death grip. He could feel everyone's eyes piercing through him like needles. The speech that day was a complete disaster. As expected, the assistant manager position went to someone else, and Father got an earful from his boss for his attire damaging the company's image. His face was ashen when he got home. The moment he stepped inside, he slammed that shabby suit onto the floor. "Mom, look at this. This is the fine suit you bought. It's all your fault. My promotion just went down the drain." Grandma knew it too, of course, but even if she felt guilty, she wouldn't apologize. After all, apologizing would mean admitting she was wrong, wouldn't it? She glanced cautiously at her father and muttered, "They were perfectly fine when I picked them out." "You must have stretched them out with your weight." "My weight?" Father trembled with rage. "This fabric is as thin as paper. How dare you blame me for this? Do you have any idea how long my colleagues laughed at me this afternoon? How am I supposed to face them now? Wasn't I just trying to save you money?" Grandma also lost her temper, pointing a finger at Father. "I'm your mother. How could you treat me like this?" I sat nearby, watching my father tremble with anger, as a dutiful child. Of course I had to side with Grandma, so I chimed in from the sidelines. "Dad, please don't be angry. Grandma meant well. She's just being frugal. You should cut her some slack. Remember when my part-time job fell through, you told me to be the bigger person too. She is your mother, after all." Seeing me back her up, Grandma straightened her posture even more and said, "See, at least Ivy understands. You didn't get that promotion because you simply didn't have the luck for it. And now you're blaming me." My father turned to glare at me, but he couldn't figure out how to argue back. He could only clench his fists and snap, "Shut your mouth. You don't get to speak here." Then he turned away, raised his voice, and said to my grandmother, "Mom, stop being so frugal. We're not short on money. What's the point of pinching pennies like this? Do you have any idea how much the hospital stay cost last time? Do you know how much of a raise I'd get if I were promoted?" "You're driving me crazy." Grandma pursed her lips and said nothing. Father called out again. Grandma nodded reluctantly. "All right, I won't do it again." Father let out a sigh, looking at me, then at Grandma. Finally, he kicked the chair hard, turned around, stormed into the bedroom, and slammed the door shut. I looked at the closed door and couldn't help but smile. Little did Father know, aside from being stubborn, Grandma also holds a grudge like no other. Sure enough, just a few days later, Grandma was up to her old tricks again. That evening, she walked in carrying a large plastic bag. Dad, sitting on the couch, casually asked, "Mom, what did you buy?" Grandma set the bag down on the coffee table and slowly opened it. "Food," she said. The father leaned in to look and couldn't help but frown. "Did you really have to buy so much? We'll never finish all this." Grandma chuckled, pulling a small receipt from her pocket and handing it to him. "See for yourself, things are so expensive these days. This little bit cost me over 10,000. How much?" Just as Father picked up the water glass, his hand trembled, spilling half of it. He snatched the receipt, his eyes wide as saucers. "Strawberries, $200 a pound. Are they robbing us? They said they're organic, flown in from overseas. It's normal for them to be pricey," Grandma retorted with unshakable confidence, a hint of triumph in her eyes. "Didn't you say our family doesn't need to worry about money? What's wrong with getting my precious grandson some decent food?" Father's face flushed instantly. "5, that still doesn't add up to over 10,000. What else did you buy?" Grandma shot him a glance and slowly pulled out a bottle of soy sauce from another bag. "And this one, 10,000 a bottle. They say it prevents cancer." Father picked up the soy sauce bottle, his hands trembling. "Mom, you've lost your mind." Grandma shrugged with an innocent look. "Didn't you tell me not to be frugal? I did exactly what you said, bought the expensive, high-quality stuff, so why are you upset now?" I watched from the side, seeing how pleased Grandma looked. I knew she was deliberately trying to teach Father a lesson. Grandma has always held grudges. In a past life, I wasted her food, so she swapped my medicine. Now, because Dad scolded her last time, she's upset and wants to get back at him. Dad told Grandma not to pinch pennies, so she's deliberately spending freely to make a point, using his own words against him. Father looked at Grandma, clutching his hair, his tone almost pleading. "Mom, I was wrong. Okay, I admit it. You should really cut back on spending. Don't buy such expensive things. My salary can't handle this kind of extravagance." Watching him sweat bullets with panic, Grandma smiled with smug satisfaction, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "Didn't you say we didn't need this money? See, you still need me in the end. If it weren't for my thriftiness, this household would have fallen apart long ago." Father clutched his chest in agitation, unable to speak for a long moment, likely torn between anguish over the money and fury at being manipulated. Yet this was his mother standing before him, and he couldn't possibly strike her, nor could he scold her, for fear that Grandma would deliberately stir up trouble again. Just as she was doing now, Father was truly filled with regret now. How did we end up bringing Grandma over? It wasn't just Father who regretted it. My younger brother did too. While I was at home on vacation, Grandma suddenly rushed over, glanced at the phone in my hand, and frowned. I heard from a friend that all phones emit radiation, and staring at them for too long can make you dumb. You're a college student. You know more about these things. Tell me, do you think they're right? I blinked, looking at my grandmother with a puzzled expression. After all, she has always favored sons over daughters. When I was a child, she even considered abandoning me. Her asking now is definitely not out of concern for me. While I was hesitating, my younger brother sitting across from me suddenly perked up. He put down his game console and deliberately raised his voice. Grandma, they're right. All electronic devices emit radiation, and it's not good for your health. As he said this, he glanced at the phone in my hand. If you keep holding that phone all day, sis, you might end up losing your mind. Seeing my brother's smirk, I knew right away he was deliberately stirring up trouble and targeting me. He saw Grandma eyeing my phone and thought it was a perfect chance to stir the pot. Sure enough, Grandma took the bait, her eyes lighting up as she said, "It'd be a shame to just throw it away. Let me think about it." Hearing Grandma say that, my brother shot me a smug look. After all, I didn't believe Grandma had my best interests at heart. Sure enough, the next day, Grandma came up with a clever plan. She brought over an enamel basin and poured in alcohol halfway. I walked over curiously and asked, "Grandma, what are you trying to do?" Grandma looked up and declared proudly, "I may not understand things like radiation, but alcohol can disinfect. Just dump the electronics in there and they should be fine." I had the basin of alcohol and tucked my phone deeper into my pocket. "Grandma, what are you planning to soak?" Grandma said matter-of-factly, "Of course, to let your little brother soak his tablet, phone, and game console. These are all electronic devices. Your brother said yesterday that it'll make him stupid. He's the future of our family, and he's taking the college entrance exam this year. He can't afford to lose his smarts." Watching Grandma fuss over my younger brother with such affection, she went on and on without once asking if I needed anything. I wasn't upset at all. In fact, I felt a strange sense of relief in that moment. Following Grandma's instructions, I started gathering all the electronic devices from my brother's room. Grandma stared at the pile of gadgets in my arms, snatched it right away and dropped it into the basin. Just then, my younger brother came back as well. He walked over and asked what we were doing. Grandma replied triumphantly, "You said it would make us dumb. Well, today I'm giving these electronics a good soak." 6. My brother was delighted. Noticing my solemn expression, he deliberately said to me with a smile, "Sis, you're not feeling sorry for him, are you?" I frowned and looked at my brother, which only made him more convinced that I was reluctant to let go. My younger brother seemed even more delighted, egging Grandma on from the side. "Grandma, my sister is just being stingy. You should soak it for her. It's for her own good anyway. No need to feel sorry for her." As he spoke, he winked at me, a barely concealed grin on his face, clearly convinced that basin of alcohol was meant for me. I stood there with my arms crossed. "What do you mean by that, little brother? You're not upset, are you, sis? Grandma did this for your own good. Just be the bigger person. If I were you, I wouldn't hold a grudge against Grandma. Grandma is always right. After all her hard work, you should really show your appreciation." I couldn't help but smile at my little brother's smug expression, oblivious to my reaction. He continued, "Hey sis, where's your old phone? You should soak it too. Grandma says the sooner you do it, the better. It'll keep you from going senile. Why not toss in that tablet Mom bought you earlier too? Don't be so stingy. That's not how you show respect to your parents." Grandma didn't quite grasp the situation and just said to my younger brother, don't worry. If the tablet's soaked, I'll make sure not a single piece is missing." Hearing this, my brother became even more smug. "Sis, Grandma really does care about you. Every little bit counts." I walked over to my brother, grabbed him by the collar, and pulled him closer. "Care about me? You're overthinking it, little brother. Grandma cares about you the most, so guess who that electronic device she's soaking belongs to?" My brother scoffed. "Who are you trying to fool? You must be confused. How could that possibly be mine?" He trailed off mid-sentence, his eyes landing on the game console in the basin, and froze completely. The smile on his younger brother's face stiffened as he stared in disbelief at the tablet and game console in the basin. After a long moment, it finally sank in. He pointed a trembling finger at the basin, his voice shaking. "Is that my phone, my tablet, my game console? What else?" Grandma fished out my brother's tablet, splashing alcohol onto him in the process. "You're the one carrying on the family line. Who else would we soak if not you?" She paused, then pointed at me. "Your sister's a bit slow, but she'll marry out of the family anyway. You're different. I'm only doing this for your own good." For my own good, the younger brother pointed at the object in the basin and shouted at his grandmother, "That's my tablet. Do you have any idea how much data I've stored on it? And my game console and phone, you soaked them. What am I supposed to use now?" Grandma was taken aback by his outburst, and then she got angry too. "Why are you being so ungrateful, child? Didn't I soak them because you said they'd make me stupid? You were just saying you supported me a moment ago. So what's all this fuss about now?" My brother suddenly remembered the things he'd said earlier, those mocking words, and they now felt like slaps across his own face. I thought you were dating my sister." He hung his head, his voice thick with regret. "I never asked you to hit on me, so what if you did? Isn't my dear brother being filial? Isn't he being generous? Grandma's happy. Grandma's doing this for your own good. Grandma's the best, right?" I mimicked his tone from earlier, saying it sarcastically. With every word I said, my brother's face grew paler. He turned to glare at me, his eyes reddening, his mouth opening and closing without a sound. I threw every one of his gloating remarks right back at him. Grandma fished out my brother's game console and set it out on the balcony to dry. "What's there to be upset about? It'll dry out in no time and be just as good as new." My little brother looked at his prized possession and finally couldn't hold back his tears. Watching him break down like that, I couldn't help but feel a little amused. Back when Grandma clearly favored him, he never once spoke up for me. He told me not to hold a grudge over the fact that I was almost sold. Now I hope he can be a bit more generous too. My younger brother, deprived of his electronics, begged our father to buy him new ones, but father refused, citing my brother's declining grades as the reason. Grandma was quite worried when she heard the news. My brother's grades had actually dropped. She knew she had to come up with a plan. The next day, just as my brother was about to leave for cram school, Grandma stopped him. She affectionately wrapped her arm around her younger brother's. "Skip the tutoring class. I think it's just a scam. Better to pray to the god of literature. I guarantee it'll work better than grinding through practice problems." Her brother looked up abruptly and said, "Grandma, that's just superstition. What do you know? This is ancient wisdom. Better to believe it exists than to dismiss it entirely." Grandma pulled a crumpled yellow paper from her pocket, with a crudely drawn deity sketched on it. "Carry this portrait of the god of literature in your pocket, and you'll surely guess the right answers on the exam. Forget that lousy cram school. Today, I'm taking you to the mountain temple to pray. It'll guarantee your success on the college entrance exam." My brother pushed the yellow paper aside and said, "I'm not going. If you want to go, go by yourself. You don't have a say in this." Grandma's stubborn temper flared up, and she grabbed my brother's arm, pulling him outside. My father tried to stop her, but a sharp glare from Grandma made him back down. "It was me burning incense at the temple that got you into high school back then. You wouldn't have made it otherwise." 7. "Now it's my grandson's turn. Stay out of the way." My brother stumbled as he was dragged along, turning to yell at our father. "Dad, I'm not going. Who the hell even knows where that temple is?" Father opened his mouth to speak, but in the end, he just sighed. "Why don't you go for a walk with your grandma? It's her way of showing she cares, after all." Looking down from upstairs, I saw my little brother being half-dragged, half-pushed into the pedicab by Grandma. His protests were completely useless. The next evening, my younger brother came running back all by himself. He was covered head to toe in mud, his clothes were tattered, with bits of grass stuck to his face. He looked like he'd just fled a famine. The moment he saw our father, he burst into tears, overwhelmed with, "My grandma has lost her mind." She gathered a bunch of old women to splash water all over me. They even stripped me naked, claiming some old man would bless me. That pervert actually touched me. If he did this to a girl, maybe I'd understand, but I'm a guy, and why shouldn't my sister be the one to offer prayers? I couldn't help but frown at those words. "What do you mean since she's a girl? Just let it go. What do you mean I should go instead?" I looked at my brother, who seemed to take everything for granted, and spoke coldly. "You're such a mix of traditional and modern, aren't you? You embrace the outdated feudal practices that benefit you, but conveniently ignore or reject the ones that don't." My brother was taken aback by my question, his mouth opening as he tried to defend himself. "I do no such thing. What do you mean there isn't?" I took a step forward, staring straight at his face. "You always complain about little fairies demanding bride prices when you read the news, saying it's all outdated nonsense, but when Grandma said she'd give all my bride price to you, suddenly you had nothing to say against it. That's different." My brother raised his voice sharply. "Grandma asked you to do this. If you respect her, you should listen to her. What does that have to do with me? It's not my fault she prefers me and wants to give me the money." I looked at him and smiled. "Yeah, we should be filial to Grandma." "So where did you leave Grandma?" Why did you come back alone? He was at a loss for words, too embarrassed to admit he had run off by himself. He doesn't care about Grandma's feelings or her safety at all. Seeing him like that suddenly struck me as ridiculous, so I turned and walked away. I can't be bothered to argue with him anymore. I'll leave this house after graduation. With Mother gone, there's no one left in this family who truly cares about me. Just let them enjoy their lovely time with Grandma. Grandma came back later. She started complaining to my younger brother. This is the master I went through so much trouble to invite. How could you embarrass me like that? My brother turned away and said resentfully, what kind of master? He's just a fraud. You're the only one who believes in him. Grandma gave my brother a firm pat on the back and pulled a jade necklace from her pocket to hand to him. You foolish child. The master said you angered the deities by running away halfway through. Only by wearing this will you be safe. You better keep this on. I paid 20,000 for it. My younger brother clutched the stone, his face contorted. 20,000? Are you insane? I'm not wearing it. You must wear it. Grandma insisted as she forcefully put it on my younger brother. The master said this stone not only wards off misfortune, but also guarantees you'll rank in the top 10 in the mock exams. You must wear it for 81 full days, no taking it off under any circumstances, understand? The younger brother couldn't persuade Grandma, so he just nodded in agreement. Over the next few days, he kept complaining about feeling dizzy. Not only was he zoning out in class, but he also had frequent nosebleeds, prompting his tutor to call home. His father rushed over only to find the boy looking frighteningly pale. Didn't get enough rest. His father felt his forehead. The next moment, his younger brother fainted and collapsed, terrified. His father carried him and rushed to the hospital. My father called me to the hospital just as the test results came in. The doctor told us it was acute poisoning caused by excessive radiation exposure. If you keep wearing this jade pendant, you won't last more than a few days. Upon hearing this, Grandma suddenly cried out, that can't happen. He's the only heir to our family. What will become of our family line now that he's gone? Overhearing Grandma's words, Father retorted irritably, how can you even say that? This is all because you insisted on seeing that so-called master. Look what's happened now. Not only is the money gone, but my son ended up in the hospital too. Seeing how harshly my father spoke to her, Grandma shrank back a little but still insisted. The master said it's a spiritual jade. Maybe the hospital made a mistake. Made a mistake. What are you thinking? Tristan wore that stone for a few days and ended up in the hospital, and you're still saying it's not because of the stone. Granny was left speechless by the question, then suddenly plopped down on the ground and burst into loud sobs. The days passed one after another. Well, I don't know either. It's not like I wanted this to happen. I only had his best interests at heart. All I want is for him to get into a good university and carry on the family line. Is that so wrong? The office door was left ajar, and people in the hallway craned their necks to peek inside, embarrassed by the stares from passers-by. The father had no choice but to grab his mother's arm and try to pull her up. Stop making a scene here. I'm not getting up. Grandma threw a tantrum on the ground. If you hadn't forced me to come to the city, I never would have met such a scammer. This is all your fault. Father never expected Grandma to be so unreasonable, under the doctor's reproachful gaze. He had no choice but to admit his mistake. Fine, I was wrong. It's all my fault. Okay, would you please just get up already? Granny seemed satisfied and quickly got to her feet, still muttering under her breath. See, I told you it wasn't my fault, but given Tristan's current situation, we really should find him a wife soon. Father didn't hear what Grandma said. His mind was completely occupied with my younger brother. I heard it, but as a girl, how could I dare interfere with Grandma's affairs? In Grandma's mind, only my brother carries the family bloodline. Only a son born to my brother can carry on the family line, because the doctor said my brother doesn't have much time left. Grandma started to panic. It takes at least 10 months to have a baby. And what if the first child is another girl? What if we can't make it in time? That's why Grandma is so anxious. She didn't even bother to ask me. After all, I don't matter right now. Even if we need bride price money, finding a girlfriend for my brother comes first. So the moment my brother got out of the hospital, Grandma started hounding him about getting married. When are you getting married? Are you seeing anyone you like? If you are, bring them home to meet us. If it feels right, you could get married next month. My brother felt a chill run down his spine. Grandma, I'm only 18, I have my college entrance exams this year. Why are you bringing this up now? What's wrong with being 18? Grandma grabbed his sleeve abruptly, her eyes glinting with an eerie light. With your health issues, what if you can't have children later on? You should find a wife while you're still young and start a family soon. We can't let the family line die out. His father tried to reason with her. Mom, Tristan is still young. Let's talk about this another time. Grandma glared at his father and snapped. Another time, when we're both lying in our coffins. The father sighed helplessly, but seeing his younger brother's expression, he had no choice but to try to reason with Grandma. Mom, there's really no need to rush into this. At least wait until the kid finishes his college entrance exams. Grandma let out a cold snort and stared straight at her son, as if struck by a sudden thought. A smile tugged at the corner of her mouth, and her tone grew eager. Fine, that works too. If you won't have the baby, then you have it. The cup in his father's hand clattered to the floor. He stood frozen in place as if struck by lightning. After a long pause, father seemed to doubt his own ears, unable to believe what he'd heard and asking Grandma to repeat herself. Mom, what did you say? I said you should have the baby. Grandma smiled, a calculating glint shining in her eyes. She looked at her father as if he were a prop. You're only in your 40s, not old at all. You can still have children. Even widow Zhang in the village had a healthy baby boy at 49. Why not find a younger woman and add another branch to the family tree? It'd be perfect. That's just not right. Father frantically waved his hands and stepped back. At my age, how could I possibly have another child? Besides, I already have 2 children. What do you mean it's impossible? Grandma cut him off. I don't care, you and Tristan must give me a grandchild. Father clutched his chest, gasping for breath as if he might collapse at any moment. He glanced at his hysterical mother, then at his son, before suddenly grabbing his coat and bolting out the door. I'm done with this, I've had enough. Grandma froze for a moment, then shouted toward the doorway. Ugh, no sense of responsibility. How did I give birth to such a useless son? If I could handle this myself, I wouldn't need you at all. She then turned to look at her younger brother, overwhelmed by her pestering. The brother seized the chance to slip away while their grandmother was cooking. With their father's help, the brother stayed hidden outside, never came back. He thought he could avoid Grandma, but 3 days later, flyers with his photo were plastered all over the community bulletin boards, even on lampposts at the market. Grandma even dragged me to my brother's tutoring center to hand out flyers. 9. The photo on the flyer is a nude picture my brother took during his last prayer session. Grandma said this would fully showcase his assets. To help him find a match faster, Grandma made sure to specify no age restrictions, no marital history requirements, no background checks, just must be able to have children. While I was handing out flyers diligently, my brother rushed over and threw them right in our grandmother's face. Then he started screaming at her like a madman. Grandma, what on earth are you trying to do? Finding you a wife, that's what. Grandma picked up the flyer, carefully dusting it off. Look how dashing this one is, guaranteed to attract someone who wants to marry you. Dashing. My brother's voice trembled. This is a nude photo. You've plastered my naked pictures all over the streets. How am I supposed to go to school? How can I face anyone? What's a guy got to be afraid of? Grandma said it like it was the most natural thing in the world and kept bossing me around to hand out flyers. After all, you're getting married. Sooner or later, you'll be seeing each other naked anyway. What does a guy like you need privacy for? Even nude loan scams don't target men. What's there for anyone to even say about it? None at all. My younger brother was trembling with rage, pointing at the flyer and shouting. Everyone at school was laughing at me just now, saying the only way I can find a wife is by handing out these things. Let them laugh. A man needs to develop a thick skin if he wants to make something of himself in the real world. Grandma had no idea what was upsetting her grandson so much. She walked over to him and gave his shoulder a reassuring pat. Don't worry, those who laughed at you are just jealous. They simply can't stand to see you doing well. She paused for a moment, then lowered her voice and leaned in closer to his ear. So, get this, a 30-year-old widow called me yesterday. She's willing to marry right away, no dowry needed, just wants to have a child as soon as possible. Sounds like a good deal to me. Why not meet her when you have time? I'm not interested. My brother roared and stumbled backward. Seeing that Grandma was beyond reason, he lunged at me, gripping my arm so tightly his nails nearly drew blood, as if all of this was my fault. Sis, why did you bring Grandma here? She's like this. Why didn't you stop her? Are you doing this on purpose? Can't stand to see me doing well. You're absolutely disgusting. I'm going to tell Dad when I get home. Let's see how he deals with you. I found it rather amusing how he was taking his frustration out on me. In my past life, I actually tried to stop Grandma from doing what she did, but at my graveside, my brother said I had it coming. He said it was a shame, if I were still alive, he wouldn't have to worry about the dowry. At that thought, I shook off his hand, my face darkening, and threw the flyer right in his face. I stared at my stunned brother, my voice icy. Wasn't it you who told me to be filial to Grandma? Then how could I possibly disobey Grandma's words? I took a step forward, forcing him to retreat further. Forgot to mention, Grandma isn't just handing out flyers, she's already booked your blind dates from tomorrow through the second half of the year. I've even cancelled your tutoring classes for you. Happy now, little brother. Grandma dotes on you so much. Look around, you're quite the celebrity now. The younger brother grew frightened and turned to look at the crowd encircling them. People held up their phones to take pictures. Their pointing and staring felt like needles pricking into my younger brother. Some whispered about the photos on the flyer. A troublemaker laughed and shouted groom loudly. Most people looked at my younger brother with contempt. His face went from red to pale. Seeing him like this, I bent down to pick up the flyer and held it right in front of his eyes. Little brother, how does it feel to be treated like a breeding tool? You know how Grandma is. She never gives up until she gets what she wants. At the rate Grandma's going, I'll get to meet my little niece or nephew next year. Grandma's already picked out names for them. If it's a boy, he'll be called Tinsy. If it's a girl, she'll be called Joudy. If the first one's a girl, they'll just try for another. The first one's a boy, then we'll just keep trying for more. My younger brother had finally had enough. He shoved me aside and pushed his way through the crowd before taking off. When my father came home from work and saw the flyers scattered on the street, he pieced most of it together right away. Mom, Tristan is still young. There's no need to rush into this. Shut your mouth. Grandma pointed at my father's nose and scolded. This is all your fault for spoiling him. You let him study so much that he's forgotten even to carry on the family line. Anyway, we must find him a wife, or I'll die right here in front of you. My father couldn't take it anymore and started arguing with Grandma. I stood on the balcony, watching a few elderly women downstairs holding flyers and gossiping. Ever since Grandma caused a scene at my younger brother's tutoring class, my brother stopped going to tutoring because he'd get mocked every time he showed up. He shut himself indoors all day long. Every day, the father knocked 3 times, only to be met with dead silence or the occasional dull thud of something being thrown. But Grandma saw nothing wrong with it. Instead, she brought strange women home every day, her grocery basket in hand. It's fine if Tristan won't open the door, I'll screen them for him first. She sat in the living room, peeling apples for those women, her voice so loud it could pierce through 3 floors. My grandson is just a bit shy, but he's quite handsome. Yes, he's in good health with no illnesses. Just has a bit of a scholar's temperament. Please bear with him. Most of those women would make an excuse and slip away within 10 minutes. Those who didn't leave were driven away by my father. Grandma started to think that either science or metaphysics must have some use. Grandma consulted a traditional Chinese doctor and brewed potent tonic soups every day. Both my father and younger brother drank it and couldn't sleep through the night. Not only that, but Grandma also enshrined a child-giving guanyin at home. Every day, I'd cleanse myself and burn incense, praying to the Bodhisattva to bless our family with a child. Watching my father and grandmother argue yet again, I couldn't help but feel a sudden urge to laugh. In my past life, Grandma forced me to drop out of school and get married, while Dad actually urged me to go along with her wishes. Getting married and settling down isn't such a bad idea. After all, a girl is expected to marry sooner or later. My younger brother also tried to persuade me. Sis, don't be so stubborn. What if you make Grandma sick with worry? To avoid them, I had no choice but to lock myself in the bedroom. Mom, now it's my brother hiding in the bedroom, and my father is the one freaking out. How the tables have turned. The standoff ended with both father and younger brother breaking down. They conspired to send Grandma back to the countryside, but it's easier to invite the deity than to send it away. Father resolved to have a serious talk with Grandma and convince her to leave on her own. After much hesitation, Father finally spoke up. Mom, maybe it's best if you go back to the countryside. What did you say? Seeing the hopeful look in my younger brother's eyes, Father had no choice but to continue. Mom, I'm saying you should go back to the countryside. Naturally, Grandma wasn't happy about it. She frowned and glared at Father angrily. Fine, I raised you all these years, and now that I'm no longer useful, you're just going to kick me out, is that it? Father quickly shook his head. No, it's not like that, Mom. Just go back to the countryside for now. When I have time, I'll definitely come visit you often. As soon as Father finished speaking, Grandma shot up from her chair. Before Father could react, she flung the door open. 10. The voice was so loud it seemed to pierce through the entire building. Oh my heavens, someone come and judge this for me. My own son has no conscience. He's actually trying to kick me out. This old bag of bones is going to be tossed back to the countryside to feed the dogs. The neighbors heard the commotion and came rushing over, crowding the hallway and craning their necks to see. Seeing the crowd gathering, Grandma suddenly plopped down on the ground, pounding her thighs and wailing at the top of her lungs. Just look at this. I came all the way from the countryside, washing their clothes and cooking their meals every single day, and now My own son says I'm in the way and wants to kick me out. If word gets back home, how will I ever show my face again? After all I've done, I've raised nothing but an ungrateful wretch. Dad rushed over and tried to pull Grandma up from the floor. Mom, don't say that. I'm not kicking you out. I just thought you could go back home for a few days. That's exactly what kicking me out means. Grandma stayed sitting on the floor, refusing to get up, and cried even harder. It seems you're just waiting for me to die out here in the countryside. When you had a fever as a child, I carried you for miles to see a doctor, and now you won't even let me have a peaceful meal. A neighbor who couldn't stand watching any longer stepped in and said, Ivy, your mother is getting older. Can't you talk things out properly instead of just throwing her out like that? But you've always been such a devoted daughter. Other neighbors chimed in as well. Some said the father was being unreasonable, others tried to calm the grandmother down. The hallway erupted into chaos, like a pot boiling over. I was holding my phone, recording a video. It was kind of funny watching Grandma spout nonsense. To pressure my father, she even started using the scar from her morning fall to fabricate a story about him hitting her. Everyone started accusing my father of being unfilial, his face flushed with shame, his entire body trembling. He used to think his grandmother's tantrums were just an elder's temper, his mother was overreacting, his mom wasn't that intimidating. Only when it happened to him did he realize how suffocating it felt, watching Grandma weep before the neighbors about my unfilial behavior. Father tried hard to defend himself, but it was no use, in the end, with no other options left. Seeing that Grandma was about to make a scene at the company, Father had no choice but to grit his teeth and admit his fault. Mom, I was wrong. I won't make you leave anymore. Please get up. But Grandma wouldn't let it go, pressing Father to make a vow. Left with no choice, Father swore an oath in front of the neighbors, and only then did Grandma slowly rise to her feet. Her expression shifted in an instant. She knew that as long as she accused them of being unfilial, someone would always take her side. As long as her children cared about their reputation, they wouldn't dare to confront her directly. Society would also side with her. At her age, nobody would dare send her to jail. After the neighbor left, her father slumped onto the sofa, clutching his hair and letting out a stifled groan. My younger brother walked over and said with a hurt tone, Dad, what am I supposed to do if she won't leave? I can't just wait for her to die. I don't have that kind of patience. Pressured by his son, the father had no choice but to try a gentler approach. For example, tell Grandma that the new house back home needs repairs. For instance, the family land needs someone to manage it. How about traveling to broaden your horizons? But Father underestimated Grandma's determination. She talked until she was blue in the face. But Grandma still wouldn't agree. Grandma was complaining to me, too. That father of yours, I don't even want to talk about him. He never does anything productive, can't tell what's important, and has no sense of priorities. What matters most right now is carrying on the family bloodline. Really all that matters. Honestly, after saying this, Grandma took my hand and, as if struck by a thought, sighed. They're not as filial as you are. You're the one who truly understands me. What a shame. No. I need to go and hurry them up again. If we just wait for the two of them, it'll take forever. Later, my younger brother and father were pushed to their limits. They bought sleeping pills and secretly poured them into Grandma's water cup. They saw that Grandma had fallen into a deep sleep. One packed the bags while the other hurried Grandma along, moving like the wind. They feared that if they were even a step too late, this jinx would never leave. As father and younger brother stuffed Grandma into the back seat, his hands were still trembling. He couldn't shake the feeling that Grandma might suddenly open her eyes, asked him why he still isn't married and when he plans to have kids. They dropped Grandma off at the old house, laid her on the bed, didn't even dare to unpack, and hit the gas to rush back. They were so nervous they took a wrong turn. It took them 3 tries to finally exit the highway. When we got home, Dad saw Grandma and me on the couch. His face went pale, and he could barely stand steady. My brother looked horrified, clutching his chest in disbelief. Grandma, how are you here? Grandma shot them a glare. I took the train back. Ivy helped me buy the ticket. I can't believe I sleepwalk. I'd better lock the door next time. Never mind about me. Where have you two been all morning? Father and younger brother were both lost in their own thoughts, staring blankly. Grandma perked up with interest. Did you two go looking for women together, like father? Like son on the battlefield. This isn't good. What about the child's place in the family later on? In the village, they'd at least try to hide this kind of thing. The city's just more open. That question nearly made my father and brother break down on the spot. That night, I saw my father and brother squatting on the balcony, chain-smoking 2 packs of cigarettes with numb expressions. When I came out, my father suddenly grabbed me and said, Ivy, help me figure something out. I can't go on like this. 11, I smiled and asked, Dad, I told you before that we couldn't bring Grandma here. What did Mom tell you before she passed away? She said Grandma doesn't understand reason. And what happened? No matter how I tried to persuade you, you and your brother wouldn't listen. You insisted Grandma meant well, that she couldn't possibly be bad, just a bit old-fashioned. When Grandma was teasing me, you all just stood by and watched. Now that the whip is lashing your own back, you finally understand the pain. My younger brother looked at me, suddenly stood up, and pointed at me. Ivy, don't you gloat over here. Gloating, I raised an eyebrow and tipped 2 steps closer, my gaze as cold as ice. Fine, then let me give you a brilliant idea. I looked at my younger brother and said, enunciating each word deliberately, Grandma is deeply religious and fears nothing more than the family line ending. My brother's head snapped up, a glimmer of hope flashing in his eyes as if he'd grasped a lifeline. You mean we should fake some supernatural stuff? I never said that. I shrugged and turned to walk toward the room. My gaze drifted to the corner. They had no idea Grandma was a light sleeper. The slightest noise would wake me up. I could hear my father and younger brother discussing something. After hearing what they said, Grandma was probably up to something again. From that day on, my brother started acting all mysterious. In the dead of night, he deliberately wept in his room, wailing like a woman. His father played along and hired someone to pose as a Taoist priest. The fake priest put on a show before finally turning to the grandmother and saying, Elder, your energy is in conflict with the feng shui of this house. If you stay here too long, it'll bring bad luck to your future descendants. If you want children, you'd better go back to your hometown soon. Grandma didn't argue back on the spot, but just let out a sigh. She told my father that she was planning to return to her hometown. When my brother and father found out, they were absolutely thrilled, walking around like they were on cloud 9. Early the next morning, Grandma started packing her bags, saying she'd leave tomorrow and that we should have a farewell dinner tonight. That's what she said, but I noticed her sneaking off to the vet's to buy a whole bunch of medicine. Being the devoted granddaughter, I immediately decided to pretend I hadn't seen a thing. I even thoughtfully mentioned that I had plans that evening and wouldn't be back for dinner. Grandma didn't care at all when she heard it. Both my father and younger brother were thrilled that Grandma decided to leave, and they completely ignored me, didn't even ask, so I ended up spending the night at a hotel. When I came back during the day, the house was buzzing with excitement. My father and younger brother were slumped on the sofa, their faces deathly pale, moaning and groaning, their clothes all disheveled and askew. They were fearfully covering their lower bodies. A woman in a floral dress sat by the coffee table, a cigarette dangling from her lips. When she saw me come in, she looked up and grinned, revealing a pair of yellowed teeth. I ignored him. You're here to have fun too, I see. Then it's too late. They probably won't be able to get up for 3 or 4 days. My jaw dropped in shock, and I shook my head. I'm part of this family. He's my father, and he's my brother. As I spoke, my eyes swept over the empty pill bottles on the coffee table. The label read veterinary aphrodisiac, the kind commonly sold at rural animal clinics. I gasped in shock. Grandma actually went through with it. It was even more terrifying than I'd imagined. I stayed by the doorframe, keeping my distance and ready to bolt at any moment. I was drunk on the side of the road, and your grandma picked me up last night. The woman stood up, stretched, revealing red marks all over her body. But the 2 guys in your family are just useless. I was asleep through the foreplay, and after just a few times when I woke up, both of them were already done. I covered my mouth in shock and asked, Wait, how are you so calm? Shouldn't you be calling the police? The woman smiled, a strange expression crossing her face. Your brother is quite handsome, only 18, and your dad's still got it. Though I'm not really into older guys, but hey, since we're already here, given my situation, I'd say I got the better end of the deal. Before she could finish speaking, Grandma burst out of the kitchen. She was holding a bowl of nourishing tonic soup. She offered it to father and my younger brother. Useless. Drink it now and try again. I covered my head and took a step back. Grandma is absolutely incredible. Father and younger brother seemed to regain their energy from the stimulation. The younger brother pointed at his grandmother and shrieked, Have you lost your mind? He tried to rush forward, but his legs gave way and he collapsed to the floor. As he braced himself on the floor, his hand brushed against a medicine bottle under the sofa. The words on the label stabbed into his eyes like needles. It dawned on him. Grandma had been drugging them with multiple medications. They've already used all the sleeping pills they bought earlier. The younger brother struggled to get up to hit Grandma, but she dodged him. Grandma glared at the 2 of them furiously. You think I'm crazy? I'm doing this for your own good, for the family. She pointed at her father's face and yelled, You good for nothing. If I hadn't kept an eye out, and Tristan's lineage had ended, how could you ever face our ancestors? Her father clutched his chest, gasping for breath, too furious to speak. 12. See what happened. I told you so. You should have listened to me. If you'd just listened to me and had children like you were supposed to, would I have had to go this far? My brother struggled to his feet, weakly pointing at the woman as he said, Grandma, you don't even know who she is. What if she's got some disease? So what if she does? Grandma cut him off, her eyes gleaming intensely. As long as she can bear children, remember Urju's wife in the village, she was a bit off her rocker too, and still managed to deliver 3 healthy boys. She suddenly leaned closer to her younger brother and lowered her voice. I gave her money, enough for nutritional supplements. The baby will definitely be strong and healthy. The woman burst into laughter upon overhearing the exchange between her brother and grandmother. She pulled a folded paper from her pocket and tossed it onto the coffee table. The words HIV antibody positive on the diagnosis report burned like a red-hot iron, startling her father and brother into leaping up with prairie dog-like shrieks. The woman laughed even more gleefully. See it clearly now. I got drunk out of despair after the diagnosis. Never thought I'd get to experience this before dying. Might as well take 2 others with me on the way out. Perfect. The woman licked her lips. Her gaze fixed intently on her brother's face. His face instantly paled, and he staggered backward before collapsing to the floor. What illness? The grandmother snatched the diagnosis report and spent a long time looking at it upside down. Finally, she turned to the woman. Whether it's AIDS or not doesn't matter. Can you have children? That's all that counts. The woman was taken aback by the grandmother's train of thought and nodded blankly. Granny slapped her thigh and declared, as long as she can bear a child, that's all that matters. Tristan won't last long anyway. I'll raise the kid myself. The woman glanced at her brother slumped on the floor, and her mood suddenly lifted. No comparison, no heartache. She tossed her hair, raised an eyebrow, pulled a pack of cigarettes from her pocket, and lit one, glancing at my brother through the haze. The old lady's being straightforward. And honestly, I've got nothing else going on. The young guy is quite handsome. I wouldn't mind coming back a few more times. Shut your mouth. My brother suddenly let out a piercing scream. I refuse. I don't want children. Father clutched his chest as he crouched on the ground, emitting stifled sobs. He recalled the words his wife had whispered while clutching his hand on her deathbed. Don't let mother come. She'll destroy this family. Back then, he'd simply thought it was just tension between his wife and her mother-in-law. Now he truly regretted it. Deeply and bitterly, the father clutched his head and wailed, I must be out of my mind. I had a perfectly good life, yet I insisted on bringing her here. What in God's name was I thinking? The woman blew a smoke ring, crushed her cigarette, and rose to her feet. All right, I'll stop teasing you now. I've got things to take care of. I'll come hang out with you all in a few days. As she reached the door, she suddenly turned back and winked at her younger brother. By the way, take the blocking medication right away. There might still be a chance. The door slammed shut. I glanced at the situation in the living room. Grandma was still muttering about finding another girl. My brother and father scrambled to their feet in a panic, getting ready to go to the hospital. After returning from the hospital, father and younger brother moved like soulless puppets. The doctor said the PEP medication must be taken consistently for 28 days, under the shadow of HIV terror. My brother gradually lost his mind. The first casualty was Grandma's fertility goddess statue. One afternoon, my younger brother suddenly rushed over to the guanine statue, grabbed it, and smashed it without warning. When Grandma found the shattered statue on the floor, she didn't cry or make a scene. Instead, she smiled. Good that it broke. Good, this means it's almost done. Grandma started working even harder to set my brother up on dates, but during one meeting, he abruptly pulled out a box of prep. The neighbor usually just grabs their bag and storms off, but not before cursing Grandma for being a nuisance. Grandma stood by the door, hopping mad with anxiety, in the dead of night. My younger brother grabbed a kitchen knife and went to have a heart-to-heart with Grandma. Grandma, why do you have to live so long? His voice was calm. Don't you know that old people living too long is a curse? Grandma shrank back against the headboard in fear, but still retorted defiantly, what did you say? Me being alive is my good fortune, something you clearly lack. If we don't hurry, we won't even be able to save the child. My brother suddenly smiled, and after that, every night he would go to our grandmother's bedside right on time and just stare at her. In the end, it was our father who pulled him out of the room. In the middle of the night, I overheard my father talking with my brother on the balcony. My brother seemed really worked up, and every now and then, you could hear him sobbing, Dad, what should I do? I want to kill her right now. You can't do that. You're too young. You'll go to jail for murder. After all, she is your grandmother. The father patted his son on the shoulder, his gaze drifting into the distance. You need to be strong. You have to study hard and get out of this place, or your life will be ruined. I'm old. It doesn't matter if I go through some hardship, but you're still young, with a whole future ahead of you. Keep pushing, keep going, and keep at it until the college entrance exams. Once you get out, don't look back." Hearing those words, I couldn't shake the feeling that they sounded all too familiar. From that day on, my younger brother threw himself completely into his studies. Grandma noticed that he wasn't taking the initiative and had no interest in arranged meetings. She then set her sights on girls from the countryside. That day, she came running back all excited and grabbed my hand. "Ivy, your grandmother has found you a good family. They said they'd give a 500,000 yuan bride price if you're willing to marry." She laughed, slapping her thigh, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "With this money, we can find Tristan a wife. There will surely be families willing." In the living room, Father paused what he was doing but didn't look up when he heard this. I smiled at Grandma and said, "All right, if Dad has no objections, I agree." After speaking, I turned to look at my father. My father pretended not to hear, wanting me to face Grandma on my own, and stood up to leave. I grabbed my father's hand and repeated, "Dad, Grandma wants to trade me for a 500,000 betrothal gift." My father didn't dare look at me, mumbling, "Your grandmother is doing this for the family. So you agree, is that it?" I stared into my father's eyes, and Grandma was watching him too. "Why are you still unwilling? Even though Ivy is your daughter, we must think of your son. 500,000, and let's not call it selling or trading. That sounds so crude. It should be called marrying her off." Father rubbed his hands together, his expression conflicted, but in the end, he gave in. "Ivy, just bear with it. After all, Grandma is your elder. She wouldn't do anything to harm you. Just get married already. Don't upset Grandma. Be a good, dutiful granddaughter." I looked at my father's face and suddenly laughed. "All right, I'll marry. I'll be the obedient one." Grandma paused, clearly not expecting me to agree so readily, then broke into an even wider grin. "That's more like it. At least my granddaughter listens. Look at the rest of you. I told you to get married, and none of you would." Father hung his head and didn't say another word. They thought Grandma would focus her attention on me and stop tormenting my younger brother, to let my brother take the college entrance exams smoothly and leave home. But how could that be possible? Grandma was deeply displeased about my brother taking the exams. She thinks boys reading so much is really getting in the way of her holding a great-grandchild. In her own words, "These young folks today read too much, get restless, and stop thinking about settling down and having kids. And then they complain about the environment being tough. That's all nonsense. We had it just as hard back in our day, and we still had children. If we let my younger brother take the college entrance exam now, what if he ends up applying to a university in another province? What if he never comes back home? Just like how Dad moved to the city to marry Mom back in the day, she rarely gets to see her grandson. Now my brother wants to leave too." "Absolutely not." To keep him from running away, the next day, Grandma had me bundle up my brother's textbooks and workbooks into stacks. She was going to sell them for scrap. My younger brother saw it and rushed over in a panic. "Those are my books, the ones I need for my college entrance exams. Do you have any idea how important these books are to me? Could anything be more important than having a baby?" Grandma continued tidying the other books impatiently. "Your father was just a high school graduate back then, but he still got married and had you. Didn't he? For a man, carrying on the family line is what matters most." Father came home from work and witnessed this scene, his face instantly darkening like the bottom of a pot. He grabbed his grandmother's arm, his voice trembling. "Mom, Tristan is about to take the college entrance exam. You can't just stop him from getting an education. If he doesn't study, what about his future?" Grandma shook off his hand and spat in disgust. "Future? Are you really going to turn him into a bookworm and cut off our family line just to satisfy your own wishes? His future should be about getting married and starting a family." "Mom, not getting an education is really not an option," Dad said, his forehead beaded with sweat. "You're ruining his life." "I'm ruining him. I'm saving him," Grandma retorted defiantly. I stood by watching the two of them argue, their faces flushed with anger. It all felt so familiar. My father turned and saw me standing at the door, suddenly raising his voice. "Ivy, why didn't you stop them when you saw what was happening? You even helped her move the books. Are you also hoping your brother fails his exams?" I looked at my anxious father and desperate younger brother, my voice calm. 13, "Dad, doesn't this feel familiar?" Father paused for a moment. "When I was a kid, Grandma didn't want me to go to school. Mom was just like you are now. How did you react back then? Isn't it the same as what I'm doing?" I looked up at him and said, "Back then, weren't you the one who told Mom to give in to Grandma? Have you ever stopped to think how heartbroken my mother must have been at that time? You wouldn't help him. It was only when Mom threatened to divorce you that the two of you finally moved out." My father's lips parted, but no words came out. I continued, "When Grandma visited last time, you told me to be filial to her. You said I should listen to Grandma. You've never once remembered what Grandma did to me. Why is it that when it comes to my brother, he doesn't have to show filial respect to Grandma? He gets to disobey her?" I looked at my father. His face had turned pale. "Dad, I've learned to be filial to Grandma. Shouldn't you be happy about that? And you call yourself a devoted son, yet you made Grandma angry. How unfilial. Shouldn't you be helping Grandma right now?" Father couldn't take it anymore. He turned away and crouched on the ground, no longer trying to stop Grandma. Grandma pushed Father aside and continued gathering the books. Little brother looked at the soiled textbook and broke down crying. After Grandma sold all of my younger brother's textbooks, he was absolutely furious and completely broke down. My father didn't dare to defy Grandma, so he could only tell my brother to just bear with it. A few days later, that woman we'd seen before suddenly showed up again. She slammed an ultrasound report on the coffee table and said, "Old lady, I'm pregnant. You're responsible for this, aren't you?" Grandma was overjoyed, nearly bowing to the woman right then and there. The woman's name was Luna. She ended up staying at our house from that day on. My father tried to stop her, but Grandma smacked him on the back. "Don't you dare lay a finger on my great-grandson." That evening, Grandma took my younger brother and father aside and asked the girl who she wanted to sleep with. The girl naturally headed straight for my brother's bedroom. My brother saw Luna sprawled out casually on the bed and reached out to pull her away. Grandma saw this and lunged forward, clutching my brother's arm in a death grip. Her nails dug into his flesh as she cried, "What do you think you're doing? She's your wife, for heaven's sake." My brother's face flushed crimson, his hand frozen midair, voice trembling. "Since when was she ever my wife? How dare you claim the child is mine? If she's not your wife, she's still your mother. If he's not your son, he's still your brother. Either way, you're responsible." Grandma gave my brother a hard shove, sending him stumbling backward into the wardrobe. "Carrying my great-grandson makes her the family's pride and joy. If you dare treat her poorly, I'll break your legs." Luna leaned over the headboard, twirling her hair with a laugh. "The old lady's right. I'm the top priority now." She patted the edge of the bed and raised an eyebrow at her brother. "Come here. Didn't you have a great time with your sister the other day? You're so young. Your sister would be more than happy to." The younger brother clenched his fists, his whole body trembling. Seeing that his grandmother was still pulling at him, the younger brother threw a punch at her. Grandma was knocked to the ground. The younger brother tried to keep hitting her, but their father stopped him. Seeing that Grandma was hurt, the father slapped his son hard across the face. "She's your grandmother, you ungrateful brat. No matter what, you don't hit her." The beating jolted my brother back to his senses. He looked at our father, his voice trembling with hurt. "Dad, she's treating me like this. Aren't you going to do something about her?" Father turned away, caught between his aggrieved son and our furious grandmother, and finally managed to utter, "Tristan, listen to your grandma. Just bear with it for now." Grandma came to her senses, got up from the ground, and snorted coldly, "See, even your father knows to respect his elders. Your mother really didn't raise you right." Hearing Grandma say that made me a little upset. "Grandma, just shut up already. My mom's great. She just has terrible taste. If only her taste was the opposite of my brother's conscience." My brother stayed silent, and Grandma shot me a suspicious look. I chuckled and took Grandma's arm. "Let's go, Grandma. The lovebirds need some privacy. You're not planning to watch, are you?" Grandma nodded. "You're right." Dad was also pulled along by Grandma as we left. He glanced back at his brother one last time before gently closing the door. In the end, my younger brother ended up sleeping on the sofa. Ever since Luna came to our home, Grandma has been treating her like royalty. Luna mentioned she was craving pork ribs, so Grandma rushed to the market first thing the next morning. She made sure to buy the freshest ribs, straight from the butcher, to cook for her. Luna wanted new clothes, and Grandma immediately bought her over a dozen outfits. Even when Luna said she was thirsty in the middle of the night, Grandma would bring her warm water from the kitchen. Though she was very busy, Grandma was exceptionally happy. Her eyes and heart were fixed only on Luna's belly, as if it held her very life. My brother watched as Grandma treated Luna like royalty, while he ended up getting the same raw deal as me. Not only did he have to wait on Grandma hand and foot, but he had to cater to Luna too. Even his college entrance exams became a distant dream. The light in his eyes slowly faded away. Later, he secretly packed a bag in the middle of the night and ran off, vanishing without a trace. When Grandma found out, she patted her thigh in dismay and immediately exclaimed, "Why did my grandson run away? What if this baby isn't a boy?" But she quickly regained her composure, reasoning that there was still his father to rely on after the boy left. Father seemed to age several years almost overnight, becoming even more withdrawn, yet the household was surprisingly harmonious. Grandma became incredibly busy because of the baby in Luna's womb. Aside from tending to Luna and chatting with her, Grandma spent all her time reading up on how to ensure a healthy pregnancy. She even used a school notebook for her notes, her handwriting all scrawly and uneven. Luna is allergic to fish and carrots, so she can't eat them. Luna loves pork rib soup, but she's not a fan of sweet and sour ribs. Luna has to drink milk at night and hates taking medicine because it tastes bitter. She has trouble sleeping. At first, Luna found it amusing and couldn't stop laughing while holding her grandma's notes. Then she suddenly murmured with a bitter smile, "Why, even my own mother never did this for me. You're the first person who actually cares about my preferences, knows my allergies, and goes out of your way to cook my favorite dishes." As time went by, Luna and I gradually started having proper conversations. She was sold by her parents to her husband. Her husband was abusive, alcoholic, and gambled. When he ran out of money, he forced her into prostitution. Over time, she fell ill. On the day her grandmother took her back in, she had finally saved enough money to go to the hospital. Without money, she couldn't go on living. I was going to drink myself to death, figured it'd hurt less that way, but then my grandmother found me and brought me home. For months later, Grandma started making arrangements for my wedding. After all, she needed to get ready for her great-grandchild. Luna came to me with concern written all over her face. "Are you really going to get married?" I shook my head. "My desire to get married is about as likely as you being pregnant." Luna raised an eyebrow and gave a knowing smile. "Honestly, your grandmother has been really kind to me. It's the first time I've ever felt so cared for." There was a hint of guilt in her eyes, so I cut her off. "She's only doing this for the baby you're carrying, so don't feel guilty. We're all the same." I fished out a fruit candy from my pocket and handed it to her. "Try it, my wedding candy, a little happiness to share with you." She put the candy in her mouth, nodded, and said nothing. I knew her illness had gotten very serious, especially for someone like her. I wouldn't go to the hospital unless the pain was unbearable. 5 days before my wedding, Luna suddenly vanished without a trace. She left, but not before leaving a note for Grandma. 14. The pregnancy was a lie. "Thank you for taking care of me these past few days." Grandma collapsed on the floor and wept all day, finally wiping her tears as she looked at me. "Ivy, the bride price can't fall through. You must marry him tomorrow. I need to get your father a wife." I looked at her deranged state, smiled, and nodded. That very night, I ran away too, leaving behind a note. "So much for filial piety. Goodbye, you old hag." Grandma was completely dumbfounded. I became a moderately successful blogger by sharing stories about my family. I even managed to save up a decent amount of money. This money is enough for me to settle down in another city. Even without money, it doesn't matter. My mother raised me well, so I can start from scratch. I'd rather work in a factory than have my entire life arranged for me like my grandmother. Sold off, only to sell my daughter and granddaughter in turn, just to gain others' approval. After I left, the neighbor's older sister made sure to update me on what happened next. Turns out she's a fan of mine too, according to her. After I called off the wedding, the groom's family made a huge scene at our house. His mother spent the entire morning yelling at my grandmother. Not to be outdone, Grandma threw herself onto the ground, kicked her legs out, and began wailing while slapping her thighs. Her cries were a full octave higher than the mother-in-law's shouting. The mother-in-law, pinned down by Grandma's grip, was flushed with rage but unable to break free, yet she dared not lay a hand on her, fearing Grandma would fake an injury to extort her. In the end, the groom's family had no choice but to leave, grumbling and cursing under their breath, afraid that the situation would escalate and bring them shame. As they walked away, they threw back a threat: "Your family will get what's coming to you someday." Grandma watched them go, then quickly picked herself up off the ground. She snorted coldly, "It's your family that'll get what's coming to you. No one would marry your good-for-nothing son even if you paid them." After saying that, Grandma saw the curious neighbors out and slammed the door shut with a bang. The betrothal money was gone, but Grandma still wouldn't give up. She kept pressuring my father to go on blind dates every single day. Every time he returned from a matchmaking session, he'd hide on the balcony to smoke. The neighbor's older sister mentioned she often saw my dad coming home late at night just to avoid Grandma. Later on, I got a call from the hospital. Grandma fell ill, and my father passed away. My father was nearly driven mad by Grandma, but when he saw her collapse, he rushed her to the hospital. The doctor said she didn't have long to live and told her to eat whatever she wanted. He was overjoyed. He couldn't stop grinning from ear to ear. He was jumping and laughing, shouting and yelling in the hallway. He was like a monkey that had been trapped for 500 years and just set free. He laughed harder and harder until he was too weak to stand, crouching on the ground. The nurse nearby thought he was having a breakdown and tried to calm him down. Then he suddenly stood up, only to collapse straight back down and was gone. The doctor said it was a heart attack triggered by long-term depression and extreme excitement. After getting home, I went to see my grandmother first. After all, it's not right to make relatives come to 2 funerals. No, make that 3, these past few days. I've received news not only of my father's death, but also my brother's. When I visited my grandmother in the hospital, she was lying in bed, her eyes clouded as she stared at the ceiling. "Grandma," I walked over and sat by the bed, placing the death certificates for my father and younger brother in front of her. "What are we going to do? Both my brother and father are gone. You might not have a great-grandchild after all." Her eyes flickered, as if trying to make out the words on the paper. After a moment, she suddenly reached out with her bony hand and grabbed my wrist. I pulled my hand away and laughed, my tone dripping with sarcasm. I said, "Dad and my brother are both dead. Your precious bloodline you've been dreaming of is finished." Ha ha. With a grotesque expression, Grandma struggled to sit up from her bed as if experiencing a final surge of vitality, yanking the 4-tube with a violent rattle. "Impossible. This can't be happening. How could they die? It's all your mother's fault. She's the one to blame. I never should have let my son marry that ill-fated woman. It's all her fault. Even now that she's dead, she's still causing trouble for my son from beyond the grave." Hearing Grandma say this, my face darkened. "Grandma, you're truly unrepentant. You think Dad loved you. The doctor said he was so thrilled to hear you were on death's door that he danced in the hospital hallway and dropped dead. You're the curse, the one who got Dad and my brother killed." "That's a lie." Grandma's lips trembled, her face ashen. She grabbed the water glass from the nightstand and hurled it at me, but I saw it coming and sidestepped out of the way. Then she continued, speaking slowly and deliberately, "Are you happy now, Grandma? You care so much about the family bloodline, and now I'm the only one left, a girl who can't carry on the name. You must be furious. I forgot to tell you. I'm going to change my last name to my mother's surname." "How dare you?" Grandma shrieked at my words. "How could you dare? No child takes their mother's surname. It's disgraceful." "Of course there is," I said with a smile, watching my frantic grandmother as I enunciated each word clearly. "You may not acknowledge me as part of this family, but the law does. All of Father's estate will be mine someday. It's all because I'm a girl who took my mother's surname." Grandma's pupils contracted sharply, as if infuriated by those words. I leaned closer and deliberately provoked her further. "Didn't you always say that without a male heir to carry on the family line, our ancestors would curse you to your grave? Don't worry, not only are there no descendants left now, but no one will ever visit your grave again. I'll dig it up myself when I get back. I've sold off the land too. And I'm done with this house. It's not like I ever measured up to your family's standards anyway, right?" Grandma started coughing violently at my words, her hands gripping the bedsheet like a vice. Her mouth fell open one last time, her head tilted, and she collapsed backward. The monitor let out a piercing, continuous alarm as the red line flattened into a straight trace. Before the nurses could even rush in, she was gone. When she died, Grandma's eyes were still open. She must have died with regrets. I looked at my grandmother's face, feeling completely numb inside. At the funerals of my grandmother, younger brother, and father, the relatives sighed one by one. Such a young life, gone too soon. What a pity he didn't leave an heir. Indeed, this family has no male descendants left. The lineage ends here. Well, since there's no one left in his family, I'm going to ask the village chief for his land. It shouldn't just go to that girl, right? Why should it go to you? Back when Malcolm was around, my family was just as close to him as yours. I heard them talking but didn't argue back. I just walked over, pulled a small notebook out of my bag, and opened it to the first page. Uncles, this is the ledger my late grandmother kept. Take a look. Time to settle your debts. And don't forget the customary gift money. You only gave one share. That's not right. Are you grown men really going to gang up on a defenseless woman like me? Seriously, that's just embarrassing to even mention." The relatives turned pale, then flushed, exchanging glances as they were about to criticize me. I quickly turned to second uncle and said, "Uncle, isn't your kid preparing for the civil service exam? This kind of thing, it's just asking for trouble if people make a scene." My second uncle stared at me, then reluctantly pulled out a wad of cash from his bag and handed it over. The other relatives quickly followed suit, pooling their money together, their hands trembling as they handed it over. I counted the money, stuffed it into my bag, and bowed to them. As expected, uncles, you men really come through when it counts. Thank you. 15. With that, I turned and walked away, hearing the sound of third uncle being scolded by third aunt as she twisted his ear. "It's all because you couldn't keep your mouth shut. If you hadn't said anything, she wouldn't have asked, would she? This money could have bought so many things, but you just had to save face. It's infuriating." The money in the bag felt heavy with its weight. I buried my father, younger brother, and grandmother together. I wonder if they'll argue in the afterlife. The thought of my grandmother nagging me about marriage in the underworld almost made me laugh. In my past life, my father's blind filial piety was my undoing, and he never even noticed. This time, it's landed right on their own doorstep. They've truly brought this upon themselves. Story 2. The nine-tailed fox sister caught the prince's eye, and he sought to form a beastkin pact with her, but I discovered a spectral woman clinging to the handsome prince, her crimson maw hungrily draining my sister's life essence. Watching my sister's weakening form, I shattered the contract with all my might, shielding her with young energy as we fled. Yet afterward, she accused me of meddling, claimed I'd destroyed their sacred bond and ruined their love. Seizing my moment of exhaustion, she severed my fox tail and shoved me off the cliff, her violet eyes gleaming with triumph. When I opened my eyes again, I'd returned to the day my elder sister swore her covenant with the prince. Miri, mark my words. If you dare interrupt my covenant ceremony with His Highness, I'll kill you. Inside the carriage, my sister Adira gripped my arm while her foxtail whipped across my face. Pain jolted me awake, my face drained of color, the sensation of shattered bones still vivid. Both Adira and I were beast folk, dwelling year-round in mountain forests with little human contact. Returning from the capital one day, she confessed the human prince had fallen for her and proposed a bonding ceremony, invited to the royal manor. I discovered the prince's impure motives. His designs threatened Adira's very life. 1. As Adira grew weaker by the minute, I tore up our contract and single-handedly held off the prince's guards, fighting our way out of that den of vipers. Just as safety was within reach, she knocked my exhausted self unconscious and severed all 9 of my tails. She stomped madly on my desperate fingers clinging to the cliff edge, cackling, "You'll never ruin my love with the prince or strip me of my glorious position as his consort. Had the prince and I not schemed together, killing you might have been impossible. You've always envied everything about me since childhood, pretending to care while scheming against me. Did you think I wouldn't notice? Drop dead. With you gone, no one will stand between me and my prince." So in her eyes, every word I ever spoke to her was just deceitful manipulation, all to destroy her happiness. She believes I covet her love, unaware that my yin-yang vision reveals horrors invisible to ordinary eyes. A vile ghost clings to that prince, draining the life essence from all around him. The entire manor has become a den of the living dead. Prince Silas only formed a bond with Adira to exploit her dominant constitution. For years I've drained my young energy to shield her from malevolent spirits, keeping her safe all this time, yet she's never trusted me. Though twins born of the same mother, my young Tareen, the demon couldn't touch me. So it made Silas plot my death. Who would have thought I'd survive the prince's assassins, only to be killed by my own sister? I'll take this 9-tailed fox back to Eva stole for His Highness. He'll surely love me more. In despair, I plunged into the bottomless abyss, my body shattered beyond recognition. All those years clinging to each other for survival were a mistake, a terrible, terrible mistake. If given another chance, I swear I'll never protect her again, nor lay down my life for her. The carriage halted before Prince Silas Manor, and I turned to speak to Adira. "I'll consent to your marriage pact with His Highness, you needn't worry." Adira's expression froze momentarily before dawning comprehension. "Stop pretending, Miri. I know this stings. I'm betrothed to the royal prince now, soon to be his noble consort, while you'll remain nothing but a lowly beastkin, forever beneath my station. What good is being a pure-blooded 9-tailed fox, still inferior to humans?" She'd repeated these cruel words countless times. The social divide between humans and beastkin was vast. To improve their lives, many beastfolk desperately seek bonding contracts with humans. Just securing such a pact means breaking through class barriers. Adira's bond with the prince propelled her to new heights, instantly transforming her social standing. But I've never believed beastfolk are inferior beings who must rely on humans for survival. When she hurled insults at me, I simply chalked it up to lovesick madness. After all, we're sisters by blood. If I don't protect her, who will? Only through death did I realize no blood ties can make a devil in human skin offer genuine love. Since she's so enamored with mortal luxuries and so convinced of her love, I'll step aside. May she get what she desires. Whether it proves to be honey or hellfire, that's no longer my concern. Oh, Your Highness. Her tone suddenly brightened as she skipped down from the carriage. Prince Silas caught her in an adoring embrace, his eyes brimming with tenderness. "Careful now, Adira, don't trip." His gaze shifted playfully. So this must be Miri. Silas possessed striking features and a towering frame, his noble bearing accentuated by exquisite robes. His back was slightly hunched, with his right shoulder habitually drooping. I raised an eyebrow as a female ghost clung to him, grinning excitedly while drooling at Adira. She suddenly turned to look at me, then shrank back. A flicker of disappointment crossed Silas's face. Adira, who had been watching closely, mistakenly thought Silas was disappointed with my appearance and shot me a smug glance, as if saying, "See, the prince only has eyes for me, that fool only has men on her mind." I pondered carefully. Silas must have realized my intensely young constitution makes me useless as nourishment for female spirits. Silas quickly composed himself and looked at me solemnly. Sister Mire, I sincerely wish to form a bond with Adira. I'll make her my princess consort and love her all my life. I beg for your approval. Adira buried her blushing face in his embrace, utterly blissful. How laughable. It wasn't Mire he truly loved. That female spectre was likely his real beloved, too. He'd sacrifice hundreds of lives just to keep that vengeful spirit alive, before I even stepped into the royal manor. I could feel the oppressive resentment hanging in the air, and Adira would soon become one of them. Adira shot me a displeased glare, so I quickly put on a cheerful smile and said earnestly, I agree, of course I agree, if elder sister is willing. How could I possibly object? The prince is such a refined gentleman, this marriage alliance would be elder sister's great fortune. Why wait for an auspicious date when we have today? Shall we proceed with the ceremony tomorrow? Once the covenant is forged, their lives become intertwined, sharing even their vital essence. For that female spectre, feasting to her fill is as easy as snapping her fingers. Without my yang energy shielding her, Adira will endure daily gnawing agony until her flesh rots and her life force dissipates. When the full moon rises, the vengeful spirit will slip into her skin and be reborn, no matter how heartbroken she is. I won't protect her anymore. Silas arranged a side chamber for me. I'd barely closed my eyes when Adira barged in. That incessant tail swishing behind her was downright irritating. My head is killing me. Do something about it now. She smacked me in irritation, but I was too exhausted to bother with her. I already approved your bond with Silas. Stop pestering me. Doesn't Silas dote on you? Go bother him instead. Adira glared at me darkly before shouting in my face. So quick to show your true colors. I knew you've always been jealous of me. Can't stand to see me thrive. With your selfishness and laziness, no wonder no human would ever choose to bond with you. You'll remain a lowly nine-tailed fox your whole life. Get up and fix this now. Are you trying to kill me with pain? I irritably shook off her hand and sprang up, sleep deprivation fueling my temper. After all my care and the money I've earned for us, you dare call me lazy and gluttonous? If you truly think I have ulterior motives, let's end this decade-long relationship and spare me your constant nagging. Meeting her disbelieving gaze, I spoke calmly. Since you're marrying into the human clan tomorrow, you'll be their lady now. As humans say, marry a chicken, follow the chicken, marry a dog, follow the dog. Go to Silas then, consider us through. Adira looked as if she'd been slapped, her face turning ashen while the fur on her tail stood on end. Having relied on each other since childhood, she grew accustomed to my patience and gentleness, taking everything for granted while constantly finding fault with me. She'd always say, how did I end up with such a hopeless younger sister? In her eyes, not rushing to form a contract with humans was the epitome of failure. She was utterly convinced, completely oblivious to how terrifying it is to surrender one's fate to another's hands. I see you're just bitter about my betrothal to the prince, spouting nonsense out of spite. 3. You want me to call off the royal engagement and become a lowly beastkin like you, don't you? As Adira consoled herself, my casual glance revealed why she'd sought me out tonight. The moment I was reborn, I withdrew the yang energy that had been shielding her. The manor teemed with spirits, and her young constitution made her the perfect vessel for these creatures. Before long, they clustered around her in swarms, clawing at her flesh. Deprived of my yang energy, she couldn't even endure such minor torments, but why would I ever help her again? Once I become the princess consort, I might throw you some scraps, you ignorant fool. If you don't want to end up destitute, start thinking of solutions now. My head is killing me. Oh really? I picked my ear and stood up. What exactly can you offer me? She sneered. The entire royal estate will be mine soon. I'll have everything I desire. As for you, she rolled her eyes. Whatever I give you would be better than what you've got now. Besides, you don't deserve finer treasures anyway. I nearly laughed in bitter amusement. After all these years of protecting her, I never expected anything in return. Just having each other's company and mutual care was enough to satisfy me. Yet deep down, she'd always looked down on me, considering me lowly and worthless. Not only did she constantly belittle me, but she also shamelessly mocked my sincerity. I grabbed her by the tail and flung her out the door. If I'm so unworthy of your favor, go find someone else to be your sister. I refuse to acknowledge such a shameless sibling like you. Get the hell out of my sight. Outside, I saw malevolent spirits coiling around her, gnawing at her life force as she frantically pounded on the door, thrashing her tail in agony. Miri, I'll kill you. I'll have the prince execute you. I couldn't care less, no matter what she says. It leaves me completely unfazed. If Miriam's can torment her this much, how will she endure the ravenous wraith after the pact? A smirk curled my lips, brimming with dark satisfaction. As for Silas, let him come if he dares. I'll gladly return the favor. Late at night, I slipped away from the prince's manor and wandered through the bustling capital. In my previous life, Upon arriving at the manor, I eagerly helped Silas capture over 80 malevolent spirits, sealing them in my magical vessel to restore vitality to the estate. I warned Silas that the female ghost on his shoulder had long lost her sanity, merely deceiving him through base desires. Once that spectre finishes draining his life force, her ravenous hunger would make him the next meal. But Silas took it as a provocation and conspired with Adira to kill me the very next day, this time. We'll see who dies first. Before long, my footsteps faltered. I knocked on the remote courtyard's door, 3 sharp raps, before an elderly man slowly appeared, eyeing me with astonishment. Young apprentice, I patted his shoulder and said, "Master, I've come to seek your guidance." The old man beamed with joy, producing a compass from his mouth. Just as the divination foretold, the chosen one arrives this very night. I gave a wry smile and corrected him, "Not the chosen one. More like your worst nightmare. 12 years ago, I encountered a hamster beastkin while chopping firewood in the mountains. He noticed my rare duality, a body of extreme yang energy yet possessing yin-yang vision, and deemed me exceptionally gifted for spiritual cultivation. Since then, I've been apprenticing with him intermittently, mastering demon-subduing arts and honing my yin-yang sight to protect Adira." The old man strongly disapproved. "You're draining your life force to protect her. Yet my divination shows she's your natural opposite. This bond will bring you misfortune." Foolishly, I dismissed this as the first miscalculation from the infallible old seer. That single misjudgment cost me my life, my vision blurred with unshed tears, heart aching with unbearable bitterness. The old man simply smiled without a word, then produced a gleaming golden object from his mouth. "Since you're back, let's pull off something big." I looked down and realized it was none other than an imperial edict. At the stroke of midnight, mournful flute melodies would endlessly echo through the palace halls. None but His Majesty could hear it. With practiced eyes, I scanned the palace and discovered a blood-soaked female ghost beneath the dragon pedestal. Clutching a flute she played ceaselessly each midnight. The melody was a Jiangnan folk tune, telling of lovers torn apart by villains. The dying woman's lingering flute notes bound her spirit to this world, stubbornly believing her flute-playing beloved still waited there. When I recounted this to the emperor, understanding dawned upon him instantly. Days later, Consort Hilda was banished to the cold palace, where the emperor found that very flute in her chambers. 3. The female ghost, having no lingering attachments, was purified after I sealed her in my demon-quelling pouch, the emperor said approvingly. "Your Eminence truly possesses peerless talent. Stay for tomorrow's palace banquet to admire the moon with us." Gazing at the chests of imperial rewards before me, I accepted. The palace banquet was in full swing under the bright moon, with music and dancing filling the air. I saw Adira again after what felt like ages. Just half a month had passed, yet her eyes were sunken and she'd grown alarmingly thin, though her lavish robes concealed much. Those once proud 9 tails now stood like withered sticks, their luster gone, their appearance pitiful. The news of Prince Silas' betrothal to a beastfolk has caused quite a stir. Who'd have thought the royal family would produce such a romantic fool willing to marry one? They observed Adira with inscrutable smiles. "Prince Silas' taste isn't all that impressive. I thought this beastfolk must be some breathtaking beauty to have him so smitten. Wasn't she supposed to be a 9-tailed fox? That tail looks suspiciously fake to me. This beastfolk looks even worse than the scullery maid in my household." "Nonsense. That maid of yours is downright radiant. How could she possibly compare?" Mockery swirled around Adira as her nails drew blood from her palms, yet she dared not retaliate against any of them. Other beastfolk would conceal their fur or tails upon entering the capital, but Adira, convinced of her uniqueness, made no such effort. I warned her. But she accused me of being jealous that her tail was more alluring. Little did she know how many despised beastfolk, while coveting their exquisite pelts for profit. Even Silas, who shared her bed every night, had a particular fondness for such trophies. The manor teemed with vengeful spirits. Most were beastfolk lured there by deception. I sipped my tea leisurely when Adira's gaze suddenly sharpened. She straightened her posture and stormed toward me. "Mire, didn't you swear to cut ties with me? How dare you shamelessly follow me into the palace? Have you no dignity left?" A vindictive smirk finally broke through her frustrated expression. "What's my status now? And what's yours? How dare a lowly beastkin like you set foot here? Guards, throw this wretched creature out." I casually brushed my sleeves and waved my hand before my nose. "Ugh, what's that awful stench? My lady, did you forget to rinse your mouth this morning?" I studied her once proud face. "Seems like you didn't wash your face either." Adira lashed out in fury, swinging her tail at me. I dodged slightly, and the eunuch attending His Majesty caught the brunt of her strike. "You uncouth orc, where are your manners?" He took a closer look. "Isn't this Prince Silas betrothed? I can't stand you orcs, utterly vulgar, can't even keep your tails in check. Mark my words, such insolence before the wedding will get you divorced soon enough." Humans looked down on orcs. and the emperor deemed them lowly creatures. Even the nobles who kept orcs as pets shared this disdain. Silas really went all out for that female ghost. The eunuch's voice suddenly shifted when he saw me. Good heavens, Miri, what are you doing here? Didn't His Majesty summon you to sit by his side? I smiled faintly. I prefer quiet. This spot suits me better, he hastily explained. I wasn't referring to you earlier. A beast folk of your standing is different from them. Do as you please, even if you overturned this banquet, it'd be no matter. I watched the sycophantic eunuch without a word. Adira shrieked in disbelief nearby. What nonsense are you spouting? She's just a lowly beast folk. Don't be fooled by her. Drive her out at once. What's all this commotion? The commanding voice cut through Adira's tantrum as His Majesty approached, recognizing me. His stern expression softened. Miri, he said with a glance at the eunuch, why hasn't our guest been properly seated? Such clamor is no way to treat distinguished company. The eunuch trembled as he bowed. Your Majesty, this humble servant came seeking the master, only to be waylaid by. The emperor finally noticed Adira, his expression darkening at the sight of her multiple tails. Adira stepped forward eagerly, simpering. This humble Adira pays her respects to your Majesty. The emperor ignored her completely, turning instead to summon me. Master, please join me at the high table. Let's not have our mood spoiled by riffraff. The nearby dignitaries burst into laughter, while the so-called riffraff Adira turned pale with rage, desperately trying to hide her tail. Suddenly her eyes lit up as she cried out, My lord, your humble servant is here. Without thinking, she threw herself into Silas' arms, only for him to instantly push her away upon seeing the emperor. Adira's body was already drained of strength, and that single push sent her crumpling to the ground. Silas scrambled to help her up, hastily dragging her into a bow before the emperor. Silas, control your subordinate, the emperor sneered. Seems your mind isn't the only thing that's defective, your vision's failing too. Silas's fists clenched at the insult, but he could only bow his head lower in submission. Your Majesty is absolutely right. I shall keep a close eye on her. Let's go, master. I walked past gracefully as Silas furtively raised his head, his gaze turning inscrutable when it met mine. I released the 1,000-mile listening device my master had given me, catching Silas's furious roar. Didn't you say she was just a good-for-nothing? Since when did she catch His Majesty's fancy? I don't know either. His Majesty must have been deceived by her. My prince, you must believe me. Enough. Silas cut her off. She's now an honored guest of the palace. Stay away from her. That sister of yours is far more cunning than she appears. I eavesdropped with amusement. Who'd have thought their honeymoon phase would end within mere weeks? Silas probably dropped all pretense the moment their contract was sealed. My love-struck sister remains oblivious. The full moon will mark her final night. The vengeful spirit has nearly drained her life force. When the moon waxes full, it'll claim her body as its vessel. Silas, awaiting the ghost's resurrection, shall inherit only a mindless creature of slaughter. Does he truly believe murdering innocents will win him his beloved? It was wrong from the very beginning. The dead can never return, even if he leaves me be. I can't forget the agony of being torn apart in my past life. None of the masterminds shall escape my wrath. I presented the divination signs and addressed His Majesty solemnly. Through today's divination, the direction of calamity has been revealed. Northwest, where countless restless souls linger. If this scourge remains unchecked, it may jeopardize the kingdom's fortune. The emperor's gaze darkened as it fell upon Silas, who was already deep in his cups at the banquet. Silas' princely estate stood precisely in the northwestern quarter of the capital. I knew when to stop and didn't overstep, taking my leave for the village right after the banquet. His Majesty was thoroughly pleased with me and rewarded me with several chests of gold and silver. By chance, my senior brother returned from his travels across the realms, and our master prepared a feast. Our humble courtyard brimmed with joy. Word of my reputation spread, and soon countless people came seeking my help to ward off evil spirits each day. A knock came at the door, but I froze when I saw who stood there. The 15th was just 2 days away. Yet there Adira stood at my courtyard gate. She'd withered beyond recognition. I barely knew her, skin clung desperately to bone, her hair like brittle straw. All 9 tails vanished without trace. She collapsed to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. Miri, please save me. When she turned around, I realized her tail wasn't hidden. It had been severed. Blood gushed from her tailbone, the exposed flesh already festering. Looking at Silas's face, I realize appearances can be deceiving. He showed his true colors so early, not even worried Adira might leave. Silas cut off my tail. That shameless bastard, he's trying to kill me. Ever since our pact, I've been in unbearable pain every day. He refuses to treat me and locked me in a secret chamber. There's a demon in that chamber. Miri, save me. It's going to devour me. I can't die like this. I pushed her away, feigning confusion. How could that be? He adores you. Why would he ever do such a thing, sister? You must be pulling my leg. I've got it. A thought struck me. You must have quarreled with Silas. What's the big deal? Lovers' spats always blow over. Go apologize before he really leaves you. You've probably been lazing about and upset him. Listen, I patted her shoulder. Wash his highness' clothes and cook him a feast when you're back. He'll dote on you for sure. I babbled incoherently, throwing every insult she'd ever hurled at me right back in her face. Adira kept shaking her head. Reduced to nothing but tears, I turned a blind eye, kicked her aside and slammed the door shut. An enraged scream came from behind the door. Miri, you heartless wretch, how dare you abandon your own sister, after all I've done for you? I'm your elder sister. My face was ice cold with indifference. Now you remember I'm your sister. Too late, we cut ties long ago. Your problems aren't mine. Another roar came from outside the door. The master emerged from the inner room upon hearing the commotion. I quickly grabbed his arm. Master, let me handle this. Don't trouble yourself. The old man shook me off with a snort and flung the door open violently. Adira face planted hard, but as she scrambled up to charge inside, the old man's compass smacked her forehead with a thunderous crack. Get the hell out of here. If you disturb Miri again, I'll exorcise you for good. The master patted his demon pouch, where countless subdued creatures howled in agony. Adira immediately wet herself in terror and scrambled away on all fours. This scene felt hauntingly familiar. In my past life, my master avenged me in exactly this manner. When the old man learned of my death and rushed to the royal manor, he found it seething with vengeful spirits. Ecstatic Silas still clutched my nine-tailed fox, while Adira had long been drained of essence and flesh, leaving only a hollowed-out husk. Silas gazed passionately at the female specter before him, trembling with excitement. Fiona, I can bring you back now. We'll be reunited any moment. The ghostly woman smiled tenderly before plunging with a thud into Adira's desiccated corpse. Gradually, the corpse began to swell, regenerating flesh and blood. Adira, she murmured as her eyes fluttered open, before the vengeful spirit could strike Silas. The master leapt into the air, producing talismans from his mouth and slapping them onto her in rapid succession. Amid Silas's enraged roar, the ghost's malevolent aura pierced the heavens before the master sealed her into a spirit-trapping pouch. Silas grabbed his sword and lunged at his master with murderous intent. I'll kill you. Give Fiona back to me. Give her back. With a mere flick of his hand, the master sent Silas flying 10 feet away. I was going to make Fiona a cloak. After finally obtaining the pelt of a purebred nine-tailed fox, I was so close to seeing her again. The master snatched my tail with an icy expression. If you're so desperate to see Fiona, then go meet her in the underworld. The blade pierced Silas's chest in an instant, his eyes wide open, forever unseeing. Tears blurred my vision as I sniffled. Knowing I'd been fortunate enough, fate granted me a second chance to see my master again, to rewrite my own destiny. May those who wronged me meet with bitter ends. Under the full moon's glow, I slipped unseen into the royal manor. Though Adira was not my purpose, this royal mansion has become a living hell, its cursed location trapping vengeful spirits that refuse to depart. If left unresolved, these wrathful ghosts will eventually break free and wreak havoc upon the common folk, having been honored with the title of Grand Master. I cannot stand idly by. The mansion stood in eerie silence. Not even a maid could be found, devoid of any signs of life. Wraiths drifted about with piercing shrieks, yet my vital energy kept them at bay. Following the female specter's presence, I reached the study and opened the hidden chamber. Sister, you've come to save me. 5. Adira cried out excitedly. The chamber was dank and oppressive, yet a hole in the ceiling allowed moonlight to stream in. Where the moonlight fell stood an ice bed, upon which Adira lay motionless. The ice bed gleamed crystal clear, while her body decayed like rotting sludge. I turned my head, but Silas was nowhere to be seen. My heart sank as I looked up and spotted a concealed black net hanging above the chamber, ready to descend. This is a long-lost magical artifact. In an instant, I realized their plan, to transform me into an extremine physique like Adira's using that net. I cast my talismans, but escape proved impossible. Bound tight in the dark web's grasp, Adira leapt from the bed, her violet eyes blazing with excitement. I knew that fool would come, my lord. Now the demons will be drawn to her instead of feasting on our flesh. Silas emerged slowly, wearing an inscrutable smile. I stared at that idiot Adira. She still hadn't realized Silas was the mastermind behind everything. Your sister's nothing special. Didn't expect her to be this easy to capture. Silas grinned widely as I noticed the female ghost on his shoulder growing restless, drooling all over the floor at the sight of me. How disgusting. Silas clapped his hands and moved me onto the ice-cold bed. Adira applauded with venomous glee. Miri, facing your end, any last requests for your dear sister? If I'm feeling generous, I might humor you. Moonlight washed over me as my life force drained away, and the female ghost began greedily devouring my essence, yet Silas pushed her aside. sitting beside me to stroke my face. If Fiona had a face like this, he mused, I wouldn't say no. He then let out a lewd chuckle. Adira desperately tried to pull him away, only to be slapped aside. Ugly wretch, I've had enough of you. You're not half as useful as your sister. Just a few puffs and you turned into this disgusting mess. Under Adira's disbelieving gaze, Silas rose to his feet and laughed triumphantly. Go on, Fiona. Devour her. Come back to life. The moonlight grew brighter. Just as Fiona was about to lick my hand, I tore free from the black net and hurled the ice bed at Silas. Like hell I will, you're the one who's gonna die. I leapt into the air, my 9 tails swelling in size as I whipped them fiercely at the pair. Amid their panicked screams, I hoisted the ice slab once more and hurled it at the trembling Silas and Adira. No, the two collapsed to the ground, their blood flooding the corner, though most of it was Silas's. Adira was already just a breath away from death when the vengeful spirit, sensing her weakness, devoured her last gasp and possessed her body. Sister, save me. Before she could finish her plea, her life slipped away. As the corpse began to bloat, I didn't hesitate. Drawing my peachwood sword, I drove it straight through her. Bang! Adira's body shattered into pieces as the female spectre shrieked, pinned helplessly beneath my sword. Hungry, I released my grip. There's another meal over there. Under Silas' disbelieving gaze, the wraith frenziedly devoured his flesh, her piercing wails echoing through the chamber. I raised my peachwood sword and impaled both the man and the ghost in one strike. Since you love each other so dearly, you may die together. This is the romantic ending I've prepared for you. With the creditor dead, the vengeful spirits in the manor lost their will, one by one. I sealed them into my demon-purging pouch and affixed purification talismans. No sooner had I finished than the imperial guards arrived in full force. I was escorted into the royal palace. The emperor inquired with evident satisfaction, Great master, you've rid our kingdom of evil through tremendous effort. Name your reward. Bowing my head in thought, I ventured, any reward. This subject does have an audacious request to make. Speak freely. Drawing myself upright, I met the emperor's gaze. Though beast folk and humans share this land, we're divided by rank and privilege, yet through these events, I've learned one's true nature, not birth, determines worth. Orcs possess innate physical prowess. Harnessing their strengths would bring considerable benefits to our kingdom. I beseech your majesty to permit orc enrollment in our academies, to let those hiding in the mountains live alongside humans, to grant them access to education, civility, and the freedom to live without fear. I dream of the day when orcs and humans coexist in harmony, jointly contributing to our nation's prosperity. I drop to my knees with a thud, clasping my fists. Your servant volunteers to become the test case for this judgment. No matter how arduous the journey or how few travel companions remain, let them mock and scorn. Their words hold no power over me. Under my hopeful gaze, the emperor finally gave a slow nod. Night receded as dawn's first light broke across the horizon. I stepped slowly out of the palace, certain that the freedom I spoke of would one day come. The end. Next story. My neighbor seems to have been reborn, or possibly returned from an apocalyptic future. She hoards supplies recklessly using her space, buys materials frantically, and has even cut ties with the family who abandoned her in her past life, to report to the authorities. I had no choice but to disguise myself as a good neighbor and secretly observe her. Eventually, to her horror, she found that the apocalypse seemed not to have arrived. As I stepped out of the house I was temporarily renting with the landlord, I happened to bump into Elise returning home, petite and thin. She looked around cautiously as she went upstairs, always on alert. Due to my professional habits, my gaze suspiciously fell on the numerous shopping bags in her hands, 20 packs of compressed biscuits, 5 boxes of self-heating rice, 2 boxes of instant noodles, 10 cans of meat, 20 packs of sugar, a dozen energy drinks, duct tape, space blankets, blackout curtains. These were all supplies typically reserved for disaster preparedness or relief. Given her small stature and delicate limbs, clearly lacking physical strength, she was not likely an outdoor adventure enthusiast. So what was she buying all these for? Seeing me pause thoughtfully, the landlord simply handed me the keys to apartment 605. She casually reminded me to check out the apartment again if I wished, before leisurely heading upstairs to collect rent. Meanwhile, Elise hurriedly darted into apartment 603, slamming the iron door as if to evade someone. Soon after, a middle-aged woman holding a chubby child chased up to this floor, desperately pounding on the door. Elise, you ungrateful wretch, how dare you sell the house behind our backs? I'm telling you, you have to transfer the property to Bryce. If not, don't you dare call me Mom. I'll act as if I never had you as a daughter. The woman cursed several times, breathless from exertion. The chubby boy, about 6 or 7 years old, also showed a fierce look in his beady eyes, imitating the adults. He kicked the door a few times and cursed along, you ungrateful wretch. Pleased with the scene, Elise's mother then pulled the child into her arms and loudly issued an ultimatum to the people inside. Next month Bryce is starting kindergarten. And if we can't move into your school district house, I'll sue you for being unfilial. I'll also bring Bryce to your company and create a scene until your job is gone, so you can enjoy your conscienceless good life." She rudely spat several times towards the doorway and walked away cursing. After the commotion in the corridor had completely subsided, the door to 603 slowly opened. A pale-faced Elise stared in the direction the mother and child had disappeared, muttering to herself, "Huh, not only did you take over my house in my past life, but you cold-heartedly drove me out and left me to die in the apocalypse. How could I be so foolish now that I've been reborn? Such a cursed family, better off without them." The petite girl emitted a surprising amount of hatred, her eyes firmly resolved as she closed the door. Standing unnoticed in a blind spot, I accidentally witnessed the entire scene clearly. Past life, apocalypse. This sounded quite intriguing. Just then, the landlord, having finished collecting rent, came downstairs, her face beaming as she smiled at me. "How do you like it, Miss Fiona? Is apartment 605 to your satisfaction?" "Very much so." After prepaying the deposit and rent, I immediately moved into the empty room. Once I confirmed that apartment 605 had no hidden cameras or listening devices, I casually sat down on the floor. "Carson, pull up someone's records for me, especially medical records. Check if she has a history of mental illness, in less than 10 minutes. My colleague from the Special Intelligence Department sent over Elise's detailed profile. According to the records, Elise is 26 years old and was employed at a promising news media company. The young woman had saved diligently to buy a studio apartment in a suburb of City A, but 3 days ago, Elise not only quit her promising job but also mortgaged her newly renovated apartment to the bank, borrowing $1 million at this moment. My 5 years of excellent performance in special intelligence told me that there was something wrong with this girl. Could she really have been reborn? As for the apocalypse, in these peaceful and prosperous times, could it really be coming? Too busy until 2 in the afternoon, I finally finished cleaning the 50 square meter rental. As I was dragging 2 heavy black trash bags downstairs, I ran into Elise from across the hall. She was descending the stairs while making a phone call, seemingly reserving a table at a restaurant. Upon seeing me, a stranger, she scanned me warily. However, seeing my dusty and disheveled appearance, she slowly let down her guard. Thinking of establishing a rapport with the target, I smiled warmly and greeted her. "Hello, I'm Fiona, the new tenant in apartment 605. I'll be counting on your support in the future." Elise ignored me and walked down the stairs by herself. I followed Elise downstairs, pretending to casually carry a heavy trash bag, always keeping a 5-step distance from her. Taking advantage of a few steps ahead, I could clearly see the content on her phone with my excellent eyesight. Elise was browsing a forum discussing post-apocalyptic fantasies and was making a list of supplies to hoard. After descending the stairs, she drove off in an off-road vehicle from the parking lot, familiar with the road conditions and maintaining a steady speed. However, according to her records, Elise had never learned to drive, didn't even have a driver's license, and the car was rented temporarily. I hesitated for a few seconds between reporting her for driving without a license to the Transportation Authority and continuing to observe her. Eventually, I chose to hail a taxi parked by the roadside. "Mister, please follow that off-road vehicle up ahead." "Why, she's driving pretty fast, and I'm a law-abiding citizen, you know." The taxi driver, speaking with a local accent, reluctantly drove slowly. I had no choice but to flash my ID in front of him, which scared him into stepping on the gas to catch up with Elise. Stopping in front of a duck blood noodle soup restaurant. Duck blood noodle soup. I was sure that this restaurant only sold duck blood noodle soup and was not involved in any illegal transactions. To figure out Elise's purpose, I disguised myself and sat in a corner to eat. I watched as Elise devoured 5 bowls of duck blood noodle soup almost without chewing, swallowing the food the moment it reached her mouth, her eating becoming almost compulsively mechanical towards the end. I frowned and noted down my observations. Elise's behavior was indicative of a stress response from experiencing severe, prolonged hunger. After finishing 5 hot bowls, she even licked the bowls clean. Before leaving, she asked the owner to pack up 50 extra spicy servings of duck blood noodle soup. Elise then ran through several streets, ordering food from different restaurants. As I passed her, I overheard her whispering, "Hee, visiting multiple restaurants makes it less noticeable. After all, with so many customers, how could the owners remember what I ordered?" Watching Elise happily bounce into her car and drive away, I shook my head helplessly. "Boss, what did that girl in the white dress order?" "Oh, that young lady, she ordered 50 servings of duck blood soup. It's my first time seeing someone pack so much. I remember it clearly. Oh, she ordered 50 servings of pork intestine noodles. Oh, she ordered 50 servings of crossing the bridge rice noodles." The restaurant owners had a lasting impression of her. They completely exposed Elise's cover. Her excuse for ordering was invariably work overtime meals for her company. but according to my investigation, she had already resigned from her company. Who was she packing hundreds of servings of food for in a single day? After making rounds in the city and returning fully loaded, Elise drove back to the residential complex, the off-road vehicle parked at the entrance. Elise walked towards the property management office with a satisfied smile and light steps. Meanwhile, I strolled to the off-road vehicle and discreetly disabled its alarm system. When Elise got out of the car, she was empty-handed, meaning the packed food was still in the vehicle. However, after a thorough inspection, I confirmed that the hidden compartment in the back of the driver's seat was indeed empty. Stepping down from the vehicle, I solemnly used the hidden camera on me to take evidence. At that moment, I realized there was a terrifying secret about Elise. I entered the property management office just as it was Elise's turn to receive service. Pretending to report an issue with the fire safety system on the 6th floor, I sat a few people away from her. Elise paid a substantial amount to rent a 200 square meter unused warehouse in the complex. Learning that there were no cameras installed inside, she excitedly paid a month's rent on the spot and obtained the keys. She claimed she wanted to start a business and store goods there, requesting confidentiality from the property management. Not only can the warehouse keep things out of sight, and began cooperating, I can't reveal her exact address to avoid the apocalypse, Elise muttered under her breath, thinking herself clever for hoarding supplies when the end times come and living comfortably. I followed her, keeping a distance of about a meter, listening to her murmured thoughts with a complex feeling on my face. Without proper certification or a business license, it was impossible for her, a small office drone, to run a business out of a 200 square meter warehouse. Could it be that she really was hoarding supplies? So, is there really an apocalypse coming? But from the various pieces of information currently held by the state, everything in the world seems normal. No unusual tectonic movements, no extreme weather events, and no fatal biochemical experiments leaking. Back at the apartment, just as I was speculating about the type of apocalypse Elise might have experienced, I suddenly received a call from Cedric, the captain of the Special Affairs team. "Fiona, how's your vacation going?" he asked in a gentle and benevolent tone, shedding his usual stern solemnity. Before I could organize my thoughts to report today's findings, he rambled on again. "I see you had a serving of duck blood vermicelli soup, a serving of fatty intestine noodles, a serving of noodles, and a serving of tomato and egg sauce noodles today. Binge eating is not a good habit for young people." Today, while I was tracking Elise to gather intelligence, I used the official card for expenses, so the Special Affairs Department had records of it. I glanced at the packed noodles on the table, cleared my throat, and started my report with a serious tone. From the moment I encountered Elise to leaving the property management office, I had packed every detail, including photos and recordings, and sent them over through a secure channel. "Boss, I've discovered unusual intelligence in City A. It seems like a person named Elise has been reborn from an apocalypse. I suspect she also possesses a type of space-time freeze, with over 100 bowls of noodly soup disappearing in the car, and still not clumping together. Her space must have some special storage function." Hearing this, Cedric pondered for a few seconds, then I heard him instruct softly, "Lee, schedule a psychological assessment for Fiona." Just as I was about to explain, he rattled off again, "Fiona, is the pressure of working in the Special Affairs Department getting to you? I understand you young people enjoy apocalypse rebirth novels, but don't take them too seriously. Not enough vacation time. I can give you another month and arrange for a specialist to provide you with psychological counseling." Distracted by the 100 bowls of noodles, I then realized that my speculations about the apocalypse were indeed a bit fanciful, without solid evidence. Such information wouldn't be acknowledged by the Special Intelligence Department, so I must continue observing, proving that Elise is a reborn apocalypse survivor while gathering more information about the apocalypse. "Captain, I have to go." "What's the matter?" "My Apocalypse Reborn novel just updated. Goodbye." The next day, fully equipped, Elise left her house early. I followed her to the building materials market, sitting in an inconspicuous van, watching her movements. First, Elise rented a large truck from a dealership, mumbling to herself while picking up the keys. "Can't have deliveries to my door. It would expose my exact address post-apocalypse." People became more energetic and no longer needed any tea. "I am a good citizen. I will definitely cooperate with the authorities." He turned around, copied a list of goods from his ledger, and handed it to me. As I turned to head to the next shop, he mysteriously pulled me aside and handed me his mobile phone. On the screen was a group chat full of hardware store owners. The chat was filled with hardware store owners discussing, accompanied by a long list of supplies. "Guys, I got a big order today. This morning, a young lady bought a batch of thermal insulation materials from me, and she even asked me to come over tomorrow to install sealed windows and underfloor heating. She came to my place too, ordered a combustion fireplace, solar panels, and a generator. What do you think she's up to? Hey. Now that you mention it, I remember a girl who asked me for blackout curtains, soundproofing cotton, door seals, and even inquired if I could install an electric grid and bulletproof glass. Everyone in the group was chiming in, and within moments, they had completely exposed Elise's secret procurement operations. The complete list was in my hands in less than 10 minutes: thermal insulation, underfloor heating, heaters. Is she preparing for some sort of severe ice age apocalypse? As I left, the hardware store owner was reluctantly expressive. Comrade, we've noticed this person has been acting suspiciously, buying all sorts of things, and that big truck of hers is really strange. As soon as the goods are loaded, they disappear by the time she reaches the next stop. What normal person does this? If she's a dangerous element, you must catch her. I nodded, shook his hand, and thanked him. Elise drove her truck slowly. By the time I caught up in my van back to the neighborhood, she had just reached the warehouse door. The real drama was about to begin. I immediately turned on the warehouse's internal surveillance and requested a live connection with the Special Situations Department. The property management claimed there were no cameras in the warehouse, but special circumstances called for special measures. Once the live feed connected, Cedric, the head of the Special Situations Department, appeared on the screen with a kindly face. Fiona, I heard you bought a lot of hardware at the building materials market today. What's the matter? Feeling overwhelmed? I think you should stop reading those post-apocalyptic novels. They're getting to you. He spoke with a gentle, smiling tone. Surrounded by members of the Special Situations Department, I was speechless for a moment before directly streaming the warehouse's surveillance footage to them. Everyone watched as Elise waved her hand and the goods from the truck moved into a space. With another wave of her hand, she placed them on the empty space in the warehouse. Finally, content, she took out a steaming bowl of spicy intestines noodles from the space and started eating with delight. Everyone was shocked and fell silent. Cedric was the first to recover, frowning uncertainly. Fiona, is this some kind of post-apocalyptic movie? The filming technique is quite unique. Captain, this is live surveillance, I explained helplessly, signaling the technicians on the screen to verify the authenticity of the footage. Several tech experts immediately started analyzing the warehouse surveillance with their computers. After a thorough professional analysis, it was confirmed that those images were indeed not edited. The Special Situations Department members were shocked, exchanging silent glances. Although it was known that there were people with special abilities among the public, a space-manipulating ability was unheard of. Cedric, who had always been skeptical about my theories on the apocalypse, also changed his expression. After pondering for a moment, he finally decided to investigate the matter. Fiona, did you get the list of materials Elise bought today? Yes, Captain. Carson, take the list and a search warrant to the warehouse tomorrow. Say it's to inspect for unauthorized construction. Calvin, pull up all surveillance footage of Elise from the past month and investigate her activities. Haley, thoroughly check recent unusual reports, especially those related to climate change. Fiona, try to make contact with Elise. I need more evidence. Understood, Captain. For the Special Situations Department, it was an unbelievable night. The information I currently held was still insufficient to convince the vast machinery of the state to act, but at least, the apocalyptic issue was making some progress. That night, Elise slept deeply, unaware that her information was fully exposed to the authorities. Early the next morning, she resumed her hoarding behavior like a hamster stocking up, following a list from an apocalyptic post. Elise drove to the largest local wholesale market. I followed in a van, with Carson, a technical expert skilled in tracking and eavesdropping, sitting beside me. This meant I no longer needed to keep close tabs on Elise myself. She started by hoarding a large amount of food at the wholesale market: 500 cases of bottled water, 200 cases of instant noodles, 300 cases of compressed biscuits, 100 cases each of self-heating hot pots in 5 flavors, 500 cans each of pork, beef, lamb, and fish, 200 bags each of salt and sugar, 100 gin of cured meat, spicy beef hot pot, mushroom beef, curry beef, so many flavors of hot pot to slowly enjoy. When the time comes, no matter how much those ghostly family members beg, I won't open the door or give them anything. I want them to freeze and starve outside, to taste the despair I felt in my past life. In a deserted corner of the wholesale market, while Elise couldn't help but cover her mouth and giggle, muttering under her breath, to observe her closely, I got out of the van and stationed myself not far from the corner. After hearing her mumbling, I frowned and remotely connected with Carson in the van to make sure the eavesdropping was being recorded, then asked again, Lee, are you sure she doesn't have a history of mental illness? Then, Elise moved on to sweep through the living supplies area. She picked up 200 sets of winter clothes, including pants, coats, and quilts, 200 boxes of disposable underwear and socks, 100 boxes of sanitary pads, 50 boxes each of toothbrushes and toothpaste, binoculars, cartridge stoves, alcohol stoves, oxygen tanks, gas masks, high-rise survival ropes. She also collected small weapons like Swiss Army knives, stun guns, and pepper spray. Seeing the list of weapons, I clicked my tongue in regret. What a pity, Elise is still too timid. If only she was bold enough to purchase firearms through illegal channels, I could have simply taken her in. It would have been so much easier to bring her in for a talk officially. From morning till night, Elise went home with a van full of goods. Of course, what she took was only a small part of her total supplies. Due to her massive demand, the wholesale market needed more time to arrange everything. Fiona, are we really going to let her have all this? She borrowed the money from the bank to hoard these supplies. If it really were the apocalypse, she wouldn't have to pay it back. It's like she's aiming to get everything for free. Carson was dumbfounded as he filled 10 pages of A4 paper with the long list of supplies, clearly indignant. I thought for a moment and shook my head. She won't get it. The market authorities will soon catch on to her. I'm calling the police to catch you all. She tenderly helped up Elise's father and took out her phone to call the police, but was stopped by the guilt-ridden Elise's father. I curved my lips into a smile and casually picked up Bryce, who was coming at me with claws and fists. Go ahead and call the police. I want to see if the police will handle your kidnapping and human trafficking case. Elise's mother panicked, rushing over like a mother hen trying to snatch back her son. Bryce, let go of my Bryce. Elise is my biological daughter. What human trafficking? She held the frightened Bryce and argued loudly, but clearly lacked confidence. As the sound of approaching police sirens grew closer, the guilty members of Elise's family quickly got into their cars and fled. Whimpering, Elise squatted on the ground, hugging her knees and sobbing painfully, her cries giving me a headache. The team leader wanted me to make contact with the target person, but I felt like I had gotten myself into big trouble. Elise's front door was kicked down, so I had no choice but to temporarily take her back to my apartment. As she nestled in a corner of the sofa and sobbed softly, I reluctantly handed her a notebook. Is this notebook yours? The cover boldly read Survival Guide to the Apocalypse. It was indeed the little notebook Elise used to list her apocalypse survival plans and supply lists. Elise, initially immersed in the sorrow of her family's preference for males over females, suddenly woke up. She quickly looked up and snatched the notebook back into her arms, her face full of wariness. Rebirth and the apocalypse were her biggest secrets, which she absolutely could not let slip. Pretending to be unaware, I smiled at her kindly. I was just trying to find the owner of the notebook. Sorry for taking a peek. Are you a writer, or just interested in apocalyptic themes? I see you've written quite a bit about apocalypse-related materials. Caught off guard, Elise nodded frantically. Yes. I love reading about apocalyptic scenarios, so I took some notes. Heh. She laughed nervously, unaware of how stiff her facial expression was. Seeing this, I couldn't help but wonder if this person could really survive in an apocalypse. As the atmosphere grew silent, to lower Elise's guard, I continued the conversation. What a coincidence. I'm also interested in apocalyptic themes. Although it's a bit presumptuous, I must say some of the information you've collected seems a bit off. Perhaps because of my gentle tone, Elise gradually calmed down. She tilted her head and finally couldn't resist asking out of curiosity, where is the mistake? I easily tricked the notebook out of her hands again, cleared my throat, and began to correct her. For example, you've stockpiled generators, but generators generally need batteries, and battery resources are consumed too highly. You might try hand-cranked or solar ones. Stockpiling firewood for burning isn't feasible, as smoke on high floors can't be concealed and may expose your location. For calcium and protein, don't buy milk as it easily spoils. Consider protein powder or vitamin pills instead. For the issue of using the toilet during water outages, I wouldn't recommend cat litter. Instead, try compressed rice husk bedding used in farms, which after use can also be composted to significantly reduce waste. Lastly, if you're lacking practical knowledge, I suggest you buy the 1969 Barefoot Doctor's Manual, the 1984 Military and Civilian Talent Companion, or the 1959 Militia Military Training Manual, which I believe will be useful to you. After a lengthy analysis, Elise's look at me changed. She became even more wary. Somewhat resignedly, I pulled out my veteran ID from an inner pocket of my clothing and showed it to her. I've served in the military and have some knowledge in these areas. I later joined a special agency, though of course, there was no need to tell her that, knowing I was a retired military personnel. Elise's tense body suddenly relaxed, the panic visibly faded from her round little face. Then, fiddling with the corner of her clothes, she stammered a question to me. So, if I wanted to buy a gun, what channels are there? I raised an eyebrow, signaling to Carson, who was hiding in the next room, not to act rashly. Then I patiently explained to her, the type of apocalypse you're envisioning involves extreme cold, right? Yes. Carson next door flicked his ears, and the keyboard clattered as he typed up the report. Common handguns being circulated in the black market are just scrap metal in extremely cold conditions. The precision of firearm accessories declines, gun oil goes bad, and it's easy for the guns to jam or misfire. Moreover, firearms wear out, and bullets have a shelf life and are easily scrapped. All in all, for ordinary people, cold weapons are more practical. After this analysis, Elise felt dizzy and couldn't understand a thing. However, she was relieved to finally understand one critical thing. With her own intelligence alone, she simply couldn't survive in a post-apocalyptic world, so Elise decided to find teammates and stick with them. Elise cautiously stood up, drew the curtains, and locked the door. Then she sat next to me, her face tense, and took my hand solemnly to reveal the biggest secret of her life. What I'm about to say might sound incredible, but you must believe me. All right, go ahead. I nodded to reassure her, guessing what she wanted to confess. Elise took a deep breath and finally made up her mind. Actually, I was reborn from a post-apocalyptic world. Under her anxious gaze, I showed no sign of surprise. Do you have any evidence? I neither believed nor disbelieved her outright. Instead, I continued to ask her for evidence of this post-apocalyptic world. This was crucial as I needed solid evidence to convince the national authorities to take action. Elise, who had prepared herself to be disbelieved and to explain a lot, was taken aback by my question. She collapsed on the sofa, furrowing her brow as she thought hard. I patiently sat beside her, and thoughtful enough, poured her a glass of water as she seemed tired from all the thinking. After about half an hour, Elise perked up. Next, I will tell you 10 things that you can wait and see happen. Okay, good. I pulled out a notebook from my pocket and began to write, while Carson in the next room was ready at his keyboard. On August 28, 2024, at 8 p.m., a massive red aurora will break out over H province. On September 1, 2024, a fire will occur in a residential block in a city, resulting in 41 deaths and 123 severe burns. On September 2, 2024, a truck driver on an overpass in G City will suffer a heart attack, causing a chain reaction crash with many casualties. On September 5, 2024, a magnitude 7 earthquake will strike D region, causing countless injuries and deaths. Elise slowly recalled each major news event from that year. Luckily, she worked in the media and was highly sensitive and attentive to such information. She not only remembered the precise dates and locations but could also recite detailed data. These events included natural disasters and human accidents, and if they came true, they would prove her claims. I focused on taking notes, while Carson in the next room was fiercely typing away. After stating these predictions, Elise completely collapsed. Do you believe me? You don't think I'm crazy, do you? As I left, she suddenly grabbed my hand nervously. I smiled and nodded, handing her a bank card worth 200,000 yuan. I believe you. Since Elise acknowledged that we were teammates, she moved into my house. Even the next morning, she suddenly started dragging me to stock up at the grain market. I sat in the passenger seat of the truck, chatting with her sporadically while organizing clues about the details of the apocalypse: lack of water resources, temperatures as low as -70 degrees, damaged power networks, communication cutoffs, transportation halts, and national order collapsing. Elise reached the grain warehouse. Sir, I'd like to buy 1,000 bags of rice, 50 tons. Sorry, there's a limit on grain purchases now. A single person can only buy 2 bags. Would you like them? Elise then went to the farm. I need to purchase 30 tons each of cabbage, rapeseed, spinach, and scallions, plus 40 bags of seeds for each, said the customer. Sorry, but there's a limit on vegetable purchases right now. How about I weigh out a few fresh pounds for you to stir-fry at home? The shop owner replied. Elise arrived at the slaughterhouse. I'd like to buy 200 live cows, sheep, pigs, and chickens each, and 5 tons of fresh meat, she requested. Sorry, there's a limit on meat purchases now. How about just taking a chicken home to stew? The shop owner suggested. After shopping around, the corner of Elisa's large truck was still unfilled. Faced with the sudden imposition of food purchase limits, she turned pale and nervously grabbed my hand. What's going on? Has something happened? At that moment, I was wearing headphones, listening intently to a series of reports from Carson. Hearing her, I gently closed my notebook and shook my head. It's nothing. If anything, it was a good sign, indicating that the authorities were already aware of the apocalyptic news and were beginning to take action. On the 10th day after Elise moved into my place, I was urgently recalled by the Special Affairs Department. It was the night of August 28, 2024. Just 3 days ago, a rare red aurora burst over H City. Fulfilling Elise's first prophecy, the team leader sent me the assembly location in a neighborhood filled with old residential buildings in a city. According to the prophecy, at 6 p.m., lightning would strike one of the buildings and cause a fire that would kill many. I arrived at the scene at 5 5:30 p.m., the residents of the building had already been evacuated, and the fire department was on standby nearby. But the weather was clear and sunny. With no thunderstorm warnings issued by the meteorological department, many officials gathered, quietly observing, while the nearby residents were confused. 5:58 p.m., 5:59 p.m., 6:00 p.m., boom, suddenly, thunder roared, and the top of the old residential building caught fire instantly. Cedric methodically issued firefighting commands, instructing the fire department to assess the original fire level and casualty numbers. Standing among the crowd, I watched Elise, who was breathlessly rushing to the scene. Seeing the smoke but the building otherwise intact, she froze, then looked confusedly at the ready officials. The residents who had survived the disaster cheered around her, hugging their families and shedding tears of excitement. In disbelief, she muttered softly, "Can it really be changed? Is it actually possible to change?" I closed my notebook and walked over in my uniform. "Thank you for the information," I said. Elisa's face scrunched up in confusion and then anger. "Are you in league with them?" Seeing me nod in confirmation, she angrily turned and ran away. I didn't have time to chase after her, as the third and fourth prophecies were about to happen soon. On a freeway overpass in G City, traffic inspectors stopped a truck driver with a heart condition, 20 minutes before a magnitude 7 earthquake in D area. The government issued an emergency evacuation order. The day the national machinery officially announced its operation, I received orders to bring Elise back to the Special Affairs Department. When I returned to the apartment, I unexpectedly found the door to apartment 605 wide open. As I entered, Elisa's family had shown up again. This time they didn't abduct anyone, but they laid out many documents in front of her. "I've raised you for so many years. Calculating at 30,000 per year, you owe the family 660,000, said her father. "Since you don't want to return to the village to get married, then pay us back, or else I'll take you to court," he threatened. "If I don't get the money today, I'll just stay here and not leave. You don't have to pay back the money, just sign this document transferring your apartment to Bryce, otherwise, we don't consider you our daughter anymore." Elisa's father, along with Bryce and several relatives, crowded into my apartment, creating a mess. Elise, with her hair disheveled and a fresh slap mark on her face, was pressed by her mother to sign at the table. Seeing her daughter refusing to sign, Elisa's mother raised her eyebrows and was about to slap her again when I stepped forward and grabbed her wrist, pushing it aside. "Ouch, now you're hitting people," she exclaimed. "I'm going to sue you." The thin, frail woman pretended to be hurt and lay on the floor, refusing to get up. The surrounding relatives initially wanted to step forward, but last time, after being kicked by me, he was too scared to do anything but quietly stay put. I pulled Elise behind me and dialed the phone with an expressionless face. "Captain, I'm bringing someone back now. There's an unauthorized entry into my private residence. Can you get some people from the neighboring unit over here?" Elisa's father lunged at me, trying to snatch my phone, but a kick from me subdued him again. Seeing that I was really calling for help, Elisa's family scattered in all directions. Once everything calmed down, Elise clung to me and began to sob uncontrollably. After she cried her tears dry, I patted her on the shoulder. "Wipe your tears and come with me." "Where to?" Elise took the tissue, her eyes red as she sniffled. I pulled out a badge from an inner pocket of my clothes and flashed it in front of her. "Fiona from Division 1 of the Special Affairs Department. From today on, I'm officially your protector. The higher-ups want to see you. Come with me." Until she sat in the special interrogation room of the Special Affairs Department, Elise still hadn't snapped out of it. Outside the interrogation room were various leaders and researchers from China. This morning, they had finally received a disturbing report from the team of scientists. The report indicated that, for unknown reasons, the sun was rapidly aging and had reached the status of a red giant star. This was catastrophic news. The Chinese authorities were now fully convinced of the impending apocalypse, and the priority was to understand the details and find ways to cope. Originally, someone else was supposed to talk to Elise, but she remained silent and unresponsive. "I will only talk to Fiona." So, I sat across from her and candidly recounted everything that had happened since the day I moved into my apartment. After listening, Elise leaned on the table, her head bowed in silence for a long time. Then she looked up and asked me softly, "Did you save me from them just to use me?" I frowned and closed my notebook, shaking my head honestly. "No, gathering intelligence is my duty, but even if you had no intelligence value, I would still save you. If you don't trust me, you can trust them. The state will never harm you." Elisa's eyes reddened again as she took the hot water I handed her and sipped slowly. After a long while, she looked up and smiled at me. I believe you. She glanced around nervously and then demonstrated the power of space under the surveillance cameras. With a wave of her hand, the space-stored supplies instantly filled the interrogation room. Seeing this, the insiders exchanged knowing looks, their faces grave. Someone quickly came in to take the items out for verification. Then Elise sat down and began to recount her memories of the apocalypse from her previous life. We're 1 month away from a solar flare eruption. The severe electromagnetic pulses destroyed satellite equipment and disrupted electronic signals. A geomagnetic storm swept across the globe, and electricity was instantly lost. Then the sun entered a weak phase, and global temperatures plummeted to -70°C. In the extreme cold of the apocalypse, species went extinct, and everything was buried under blizzards. As she spoke, the faces of those in the know grew more serious. After Elise finished, Carson came to take her to a designated dormitory for rest. The internal meeting was intense, and I was called aside by the head of the Special Affairs Department, Cedric. Fiona, thank you for your efforts. I shook hands with him, serving the people. After that day, China's apocalypse plan officially started. The senior officials held a press conference and urgently called on the entire population to start preparations. Elise didn't want to be confined to the Special Affairs Department and watched the apocalypse preparations under the accompaniment of security. Fiona, why are underground shelters being built? The steel and concrete of skyscrapers will deform and burst under rapid freezing, and they won't last long before collapsing. Fiona, what are they burying? She asked. It's a geothermal pipeline system to maintain subsurface temperatures and prevent the soil and groundwater from freezing, I explained. Fiona, Elise chattered away, asking all sorts of questions until she suddenly fell silent. What's wrong? I asked, checking the blueprints for the underground structure. When I noticed Elise had gone quiet, she looked down nervously, her fingers tightly twisting the hem of her clothes, her voice so low it was almost inaudible. Fiona, am I being selfish? She murmured, knowing the news of the apocalypse, but only focusing on hoarding supplies for myself. I could have saved so many people if I had reported it to the nation. Tears the size of beans slid down her cheeks, which she hastily wiped away with her hand. I paused for a moment, then handed her a tissue. After a moment of thought, I reached out and comforted her by patting her head. You've done very well, I reassured her. Because of your rebirth, we were able to learn of the apocalypse and start the national machinery in advance. Your very existence has given hope to millions. Elise lifted her tear-stained face and stammered, really, yes. Upon receiving my earnest reply, she couldn't hold back any longer and burst into tears, throwing herself into my arms. Fiona, I'm so glad to have met you. A month later, the extreme cold apocalypse Elise had spoken of indeed arrived. The first challenge of the apocalypse was the environment. Temperatures dropping to -70°C would result in the death of 80% of the population. The nation announced the locations of shelters 5 days in advance and declared a full evacuation. Each underground shelter was vast, with walls made of thick insulation materials that blocked out the cold air. The shelters were equipped with central temperature control systems to maintain a basic living environment. All citizens orderly registered their information, accepted their allocations, and received basic supply packages. A new order and currency of credits were established, turning all labor contributions and surrendered materials into points. The second challenge was food. In harsh survival conditions, countless people died from hunger or violence over a few morsels of food. In the last month, the nation centralized control over the national granaries and urgently harvested crops from all regions: wheat, soybeans, corn, sweet potatoes, and highland barley. Vegetables and fruits were dehydrated and turned into comprehensive nutritional packs. Food processing plants produced large quantities of compressed biscuits, energy bars, rice packs, noodle cakes, and seasonings. Livestock such as pigs, cattle, sheep, and chickens were sent to slaughterhouses, and aquaculture farms were drained for harvesting. The extreme cold apocalypse served as a natural freezer, allowing fresh meat to be stored, besides being processed into canned goods and jerkies. Basic supply factories added production lines, stockpiling essential items like toilet paper for 10 years' worth of use. As for water resources, each shelter was built near a stable underground water source. Research institutes introduced large, advanced water purification devices, ensuring 70% of water resources were recyclable. The third challenge was production and communication. Resources were constantly being consumed, and production was necessary to avoid depletion. Before the apocalypse, the nation widely promoted low-temperature cultivation techniques and developed frost-resistant seeds. Batches of preserved livestock and fish species were distributed across the regions. After population migration, each shelter rapidly recruited labor to expand underground planting and breeding bases. Technical talents nationwide were summoned to expedite the transfer of electricity and communication systems underground. The military maintained absolute control over weapons stationed at shelters. With the national government remaining unbreakable, industries gradually resumed production, maintaining order during the apocalypse. No one knew when the apocalypse would end, but at least life wasn't too bad. As a special contributor affecting the fate of the whole nation, Elise received a protection order. Elise's family was arranged to another shelter, and it was unlikely they would ever meet again. On a peaceful and calm night, I finished work at the Central Shelter's Special Affairs Department and headed home. Elise knocked and peeked in, then breezed into the room. She pulled out supplies from her space, casually setting a table full of dishes. "Today, sister's treating you to hot pot. From now on, we'll eat well and live a beautiful life," she declared. Her supplies hadn't been confiscated, it was allowed by the higher-ups. I took out some cola I exchanged with credits from the cabinet and placed it on the table. The rich scent of butter wafted through the room, steam rising everywhere. As we ate, Elise started laughing, but soon her eyes welled up with tears as she looked up at me. "It feels like the apocalypse has come, and yet it hasn't," she said. I picked up a fish ball with my chopsticks and placed it in her bowl, smiling. "You saved them, you saved everyone." She took a bite of the fish ball, scalding her mouth with the hot broth and struggling to speak. "Fiona, do you think the apocalypse will ever end?" she asked. I took a sip of the hot soup, smiled, and didn't answer. "It will. This united nation has endured countless hardships and still stands strong. I believe its unyielding spirit will ultimately welcome a new dawn."